Good morning and welcome to Brandenburg News Network. I am Donna Brandenburg and it's the 24th day of September 2024. Welcome to our show today. First off, we have John Tater, Lawful Defense, and we're going to be going through our pro se lawsuit, which that name seems to be up for discussion, and the responses that I've gotten this morning a little bit. And then after that, we're going to be doing Off the Grid. Courtney Turner is getting ready to get married, so she had a dress fitting this morning. And then after that, it will be Jalise Middleton, and she has Brad Rukstales on at 11 o'clock. And with that said, bring my buddy. Hey, John, how you doing?
I'm doing good.
Good. Trust the plan. I like that. That's what I always say on things. You got to trust the plan because trusting the plan means you trust God above all because it's His plan above everything else.
Absolutely.
And I'm sticking with it. So what's going on with John World this morning? Man, there's a lot of nonsense out there in the world.
Oh, there is a lot of nonsense going on. Actually, I was putting somebody stole my Trump signs from my neighborhood. From my yard.
Really?
My front yard. Oh yeah, they did. They stole my Kennedy sign. I have a Kennedy sign that's got a picture of Kennedy and it says, "What have you Democrats done to my party?"
Oh, I like
that sign.
See, I like Kennedy. I really do like Kennedy. People go, "Oh, he's against guns. He's against that." Well, yeah, but he's a phenomenal attorney, and he knows how to use the skills he has. I mean, this is
JFK. This is not.
JFK. Well, I like both of them. Okay, so just for the record, I like both of them. And the problem that I see is that we're having to, I don't know, put people in the same category as Jesus Christ, absolutely perfect, instead of realizing that we're working with human beings, which introduces a little complexity into the situation. You're never going to find somebody you agree with 100% of the time, no matter what you do. And that's why this nation is a nation of laws, not men. It should not be a popularity contest. And that's where we're getting ourselves in the weeds. You stick to the law, you hold each other accountable to the law, and then you instruct them on the law.
That means
and you have accountability.
Does that mean they shouldn't steal my signs off my lawn?
I would say that's correct. So I had an interesting night last night, which shows exactly how ignorant people are of the law. And I just got to say that thank you, sir, for taking the time to teach both myself and everyone else out there on the Constitution and you and there's a lot of people out there that have been teaching everybody on this. But the point being is that thanks to everyone who has taken the time to hold everyone accountable and show each other what is right. So I went to this meeting last night in Byron Township, which is kind of here. I'm queuing up my Rumble channels. Hang on a minute. So I have to queue them up so that I can get the comments on the chat so I can respond. So last night, I went to the township council meeting. And I want to tell you, I'm going to write on how ignorant these people are. A developer came in and I said to them, you have one job to do, and that's to uphold the interests and serve the interests of we the people. Don Tilma got up there as the chairman of the board, basically, and said, well, development comes first. No, it doesn't. And
No,
I said, basically, I said, you're inviting these developers into Byron Township. It's the same thing on a smaller scale is inviting China in to buy land in the United States. They are literally coming in here as a foreign entity to our township to make money. There was some concerns about the drainage and what needs to happen. And I said, I'd like them to post a bond in order to make sure that if there's any problems with the groundwater, make them post a bond. If they're willing to do the right thing, make them post a bond for it. So if there's any problems, they pay for the problems they created rather than citizens of the township who get no benefit from this whatsoever. I'm like, what is the benefit for the township? Why should we pay for their mistakes and or the increase of infrastructure that's going to happen? The citizens are going to have to pay for this. Their little peeing in the pool party that they've got going on there, like a bunch of little kids peeing in the pool. And then another one, Scott DeBergen, stepped forward and said, well, we take our orders from the state. And I'm like, no, you don't. And he sat there and he admitted to the fact that the state is giving them orders and they are following the orders of the state. And of course, there was not one person there that approved this development as it was. And there were some really good reasons for not approving it. One of the biggest ones was they were not paying attention to the drain water problem, nor did they deal with it, nor are they going to hold them accountable to anything. There was another question that was brought up, and I brought it up, is it's on a hill and they're going to be dumping. It's a double density development for this area that shouldn't happen. And I said, okay, you guys just prayed to Jesus. I said, I'm assuming that you hold true or hold to the thing that treat others as you would want to be treated. And would you actually want to be treated the way that the neighbors here are being treated, to dump this here on their backyard? With no concern for them. So there were some things brought up, but then, you can get into the weeds on this a little bit and say a true constitutionalist says that anybody that buys property should have the ability to do what they want. But with that said, you're talking about a corporate entity which is funded by the banking system, the illegal banking system, which is basically foreign money. And so honestly, you could hang it all on that. If it's a private individual, that's one thing. But when it comes to foreign entity that is being funded by foreign money and a corporation, not a citizen, we got a big problem. And that's where I have a problem with all of this with. The corporations should not be running the United States of America, because as soon as we do that, you are harboring a foreign entity. You are doing business with a foreign entity. You are protecting the interests of a foreign entity over the citizens of the United States. And I have a big problem with that. So I digress. Right. I sent over the lawsuit this morning, and I wanted to bring up, I'm going to see if I can pull these up a minute, the responses. We got responses for, let me see where it is here. I got responses for, say, the lawsuit. I wanted to go over them with you this morning. Hang on a minute. I know you didn't get a chance to look at this, but we're going to start out with this one. And this is actually, this is the court date. We have a court date that we're going to be going to, and then we're going to go into what they said, and we'll read their response on why they should go for dismissal of the suit. They go right into dismissal. So we have down a Brandenburg plaintiff and Whitmer, Benson, Nessel, and Brater in their official capacity, because what they did is they actually broke the law in their official capacity, not as an individual, but we're suing them individually. Take notice, defendant.
I did not see your complaint, so I don't know how you wrote the complaint.
We went through it last week.
But
we did go through it last week, but I can send it to you. But
oh no, I'm saying if the language as who Gretchen Whitmer in her individual capacity and not as governor. She's governor, but she in her individual capacity is how you should have listed.
Well,
if
they kick us out, we're going to appeal this, and we're going to appeal it to federal court. So we'll make the.
Well, here's the point.
Okay.
You have to quash their appeal. I mean their dismissal, and it's easy to do because they've done a lot of stuff in here that you could start raising questions of.
Yeah. And so take notice that the defendant's motion for dismissal will now be brought up to hearing on October 18, 2024, 8:30 a.m., or as soon as may be heard before Christina Edmore. So there's the proof of service. So our date is October 18 at 8:30. So I will be there for that, which I think is interesting. So they went straight for motion to dismissal, which we knew they were going to do. So that's okay. Now we're going to go for the motion to dismiss. Now, what I thought was really interesting to this point is that they never disagreed with anything we had.
They won't.
No, because they agreed with it because they didn't disagree with any of our charges.
Yeah, but you're kind of stretching because you think we're dealing with a legal, lawful, governmental judicial system, and the circuit court is not. The circuit court is corrupt. In Michigan, is corrupt as the Attorney General, as Gretchen Whitmer, as Dana Nessel, and as Benson. So we got to deal with this differently.
Now, what I'm going to tell you that we found is that, and it's right in the law, is that they allowed an API to be, and we actually found more that shows a complicity going on there, and conspiracy, quite honestly, to get around the law, but that'll come later. But at any rate, what they did is they allowed NGOs to use an API to register voters instead of going to the Secretary of State. There's very specific language on where they can register voters to vote, and including an API isn't one of them. And they decided to take it upon themselves to change that without the approval of the legislature. So,
well, they can't change it anyway. Legislature has to do the changing if it's going to be changed.
They didn't.
And the legislature cannot
break the law.
The legislature cannot authorize or give authority over to the executive branch to do their job. That can't.
Right. So
they make the law and the executive branch carries it out. That's the way the government is supposed to be set up.
So we got a big problem here. So the state defendants have immunity from the suit where the Court of Claims has exclusive jurisdiction over Brandenburg's claims against them. No, it doesn't. We're going to skip the Court of Claims, guys, just so you know. We're going to go right to federal if you dismiss this.
Then they're going to stick it in the federal Court of Claims, or they're going to say it's a state issue. You got to defeat this thing first.
Okay, well, at any rate, so we're going to figure out a way to do this.
How to defeat this?
Yeah, I want to know how to defeat this.
Okay, let's start at the very beginning. First of all, they've changed the first page by putting in her official capacity as governor and in her official capacity as state. They changed that all, so that's incorrect.
Okay, hang on a minute. Let me go up there, and I'm gonna make some notes here. So she has this as
you're not suing them in their official capacity.
In her official
capacity didn't violate the law. They did.
Well, she did violate the law in her official capacity. I see.
No. Listen. I put you in an office. Let's say I put you in, I don't know, any kind of office, any governmental office, and you step outside your job description. You are the one that's violating the law, not your office. Your office didn't do anything. Your office is an inanimate object. Those offices that they're touting, they're using for their immunity, but they have no immunity because they stepped outside their official capacity of what they were allowed to do by law. So this thing is, and this is the word speak of the Attorney General, of the judicial system, to try to twist the language here to make you follow what they want you to follow. And so that's where you got to start and say, you know, you guys are all wet. You're, first of all, you've changed my lawsuit from individuals to official capacity. You're not suing them in official capacity.
We did, I believe, have that in there as in their official capacity because she stepped outside of but we're suing her individually. And so, because
I didn't see that, so I don't know how that's worded, but that's what I'm telling you. Okay. That's number one. Number two, most important.
Okay.
Important. Norton versus Shelby County. Remember, we said you can never create a de facto office. Which office is de facto?
I'm taking notes here.
Which office is de facto?
Go ahead and fill me in on that one.
The Court of Claims.
Okay.
There's no provision in the state constitution for a Court of Claims.
Okay.
That doesn't exist. The Court of Claims is a made-up organization. They cannot create a de facto office by legislative act. Can't be done. It has to go through the Constitution. That means you got to amend the Constitution to bring in the Court of Claims. The Court of Claims in Michigan does not exist. And so you need to beat them over the head with Norton as hard as you can, because they said here, the State Department agrees the civil registration drive. Wait a minute. That's not the spot that I looked at. Where is it?
Do you want me to go up? Because where we started was in their statement. This is their statement here. Is
Brandenburg gubernatorial. Oh, and why did they bring in where is it?
That was on the other one that I had up on this motion right here. So this was the court date, and this is
Michigan Department of Development application of organization complete registration online.
No, it is here.
Why did they bring up that you were a former gubernatorial candidate in 2022 who seeks challenge the use of the API? What the heck does that have one thing have to do with the other? That's an issue that should be brought in. That's kind of saying that you were a former, that you lost the election because you didn't get enough signatures or because you lied on your. This is where they're going to go with this. Oh, you know, your signatures were fraudulent.
But that has nothing to do with the issue. So exactly. How do you rebut this?
They taint this. How I would rebut it is I would say being a gubernatorial candidate has nothing to do with this lawsuit, period. You know, let them do the dance around that.
Okay.
Voter registration, drivers guidelines. Let's see.
Okay. Are you looking at the actual motion here?
I'm looking at the motion to dismiss.
Okay. So if we go down here, we'll go down here, and they've got all these cases listed in statutes, which is great because I can. So like my court date is October 18th, and I should write I should write something back to them. And
I would answer this.
Okay.
I've given this to Ron yesterday to take a look at. I'm sure he's choking over it, laughing like crazy.
Okay.
But they kind of think that you don't know what you're doing, and therefore they're going to pull this over on you.
Well, we're going to get this thing figured. I you know what? I may or may not know what I'm doing, but one thing about it is I sure as hell I'm going to jump into this and get it figured out. You know, I mean, I think that's just it. It's like, you know, we can't be afraid to try things and be intimidated by them. I saw that happen at the township meeting last night about be afraid of the state instead of stand there and like a coward that they were and capitulate, because that's exactly what was happening. They're using all these psychological tactics to
jump to the argument. Jump to the argument.
Well, let me. Okay,
we'll go to the argument. We're going to go roundabout here. You can, if you have this on a piece of paper in front of you, You can scribble notes if you want, but
standard review. There's the argument.
Then we'll talk about it
Okay.
a little more.
So here's the argument.
Yeah.
The state defendants have immunity from suit where the Court of Claims has exclusive jurisdiction over Brandenburg's claims against them. So this thing dies right there with the fact that the Court of Claims is under Norton. It dies right there.
You didn't put this in the Court of Claims.
No, I have this
to the circuit court, and you didn't sue them in their official capacity. You sued them as individuals. So the Court of Claims really doesn't fit in there, number one. Number two, Court of Claims doesn't exist because Norton versus Shelby County states that it has to be done constitutionally. And there is no constitutional provision in the state of Michigan Constitution that provides for Court of Claims. This Court of Claims, and they even say it in here, was brought on by legislative act. Well, you can't do that. Norton doesn't allow that. Okay. Second most important case that you should look at is Schur versus Rhodes, because Schur versus Rhodes says you have the ability as a petitioner to have your claim heard before they could dismiss by summary judgment, and you're gonna have to go find that paragraph in Schur versus Rhodes and write it in your document, so they can't dance around that. That's a Supreme Court decision. Same thing with Norton versus Shelby County. When you quote it, you quote that an unconstitutional act is not a law. And that little 2-sentence paragraph that's in Norton at the end on page 6, I think it is. So you quote that in there too. You put these quotes in there. You don't just throw something out like MCL 600-6401 because you don't know what that says. You got to go read it. You got to go look and interpret what they're trying to tell you in there. Here they're saying it permits the 600.6401 gives the legislature the power to enact the Court of Claims. No, I'm sorry, it doesn't do that. Norton versus Shelby County Supreme Court decision of 1886, which is stare decisis, says you cannot create a de facto office by a legislative act. You blew them right out of the water with that one.
Awesome.
Now, whether they follow the Supreme Court, but you got to list all of those things if you're going to appeal this, because those are the issues that you're going to be able to raise at appeal.
Okay, and then so when I file this answer, do I file it as a motion, an amendment, or what? How do I file it?
It's a motion. It's a motion.
It's a motion.
Yeah, it's a motion to something like my motion in response to or in reply to state's motion to dismiss. We can work out the language. In fact, I can't give you that at this very second, but we can work that out. Okay.
Okay.
Any authority extraordinary against any department. There again, it spells out writ against any state or any of its departments or officers, notwithstanding other law.
Now, where are you? You're jumping around.
I'm in the argument about the second page where it talks about 600-6401.
Okay.
It says the Court of Claims provides that the Court of Claims has exclusive jurisdiction. No, they don't. If they don't exist, to hear and determine any claims or demand statutory or constitutional liquidation or unliquidated or ex-contractual or ex whatever that is. Some of this stuff I can't. Delicto or whatever. Any demands for monetary, equitable or declaratory relief and or demands for extraordinary writ against the state but you're not suing the state or
Yeah.
any of its departments, and you're not suing any of its departments or officers, notwithstanding other law. And here suing their officers in their individual capacities because they violated the law. That confers jurisdiction in the case of the circuit court. Whereas the court lacks jurisdiction, it should not. You didn't file this in the court of claims. They're trying to transfer you to the court of claims. Now, if they get away with that, if they get to transfer you to the court of claims and say they have no jurisdiction in the circuit court, and they can do that by saying you're trying to sue the state, then you've lost. The case is dead. So then you have to do it a different way. Or you can appeal it, but this is why you got to put the arguments in this and put it on the record so it can go to the Court of Appeals. So you can use Norton versus Shelby County in the Court of Appeals. So you can use Scher versus Rhodes in the Court of Appeals. And then the immunity clause, which they pull out, you use Ex parte Young, which says if they step outside their official capacity, they will be stripped of their office and be held to the consequences.
Okay, hang on a minute. Hold on. If they step out, say that again.
If they step outside their official capacity, they will be stripped of their office and face the consequences. And you got to go to Ex parte Young and pull that phrase exactly. I'm paraphrasing because I don't remember it word for word. But I know where to find it if I need it. And so, you need to pull it.
All right. So if they step outside of their official capacity, they'll be stripped of their office.
Yep. And they'll be stripped of their office and face the consequences. Stripped of their stripped of their office. You got to go to the court case and pull it and read it. It's only a paragraph. You can find it. If you've got our copies, they're all yellowed.
Okay.
So it's there. It's prominent.
Okay.
So you've got three arguments right there on the top and then I don't know what these MCLs read specifically. If it reads specifically what they're saying, then they have an argument. But if it doesn't, and they're trying to paraphrase something or add something to it or say that, well, yeah, it applies to us because we have the ability to read into this a little bit, that is incorrect. So you got to read those. And I haven't read the 600s MCLs, but they're generally pretty specific and say what they can do and what they can't do. So that's what you got to go and find out what it says exactly.
And then can we argue the fact that they're not perhaps a lawful process or contradicts the Constitution at that point in time, or contradicts higher processes or law?
Well, you argued in Norton. You said unconstitutional act is not a law.
Okay.
That kind of covers everything. And that the fact that the court is de facto and not de jure, and you're going to use those terms. It's not constitutional. There's no provision in the Michigan Constitution that provides for a court of claims to even exist. It doesn't exist. And you quote Norton versus Shelby County.
Well, this is going to be fun. Like I said, and I think hopefully it's a good lesson for everybody. You don't need to know everything. You just need to be willing to jump into things and figure it out along the way. And you're going to make some mistakes, and that's okay to make some mistakes along the way. At least you can get in the game and be in the game and learn. So, and I think this is a good process to go through, is going through this and figuring out this entire process. So we've got another tool.
All right, then go down to page 5, top of the page.
I'm going. All right, hang on here. Page 5, top of the page.
Where it says agencies of the state and or official officers, employees, or volunteers of the state, or any governing, legislative, or judicial body, department, commission, board, institution, arm, or agency of the state acting or who reasonably believes that he or she is acting within the scope of his or her authority while engaged in discharging of the governmental function is the course of his own duty, which says that they basically have immunity from an act. So you want to say, okay, I want to see the authority that gives them the right to bring in the API. Where does it say that specifically in what MCL? And if it doesn't, they have no authority. If it's not written down, you can't assume.
Okay.
And
so can I quote where it is explicitly illegal?
Well, that is the correct
statement. Should I just ask them to provide that?
No, you want them to provide. First of all, you want to read it and see that it doesn't say that in there.
Well, I know it doesn't say that. I know it doesn't say that they can do it because I've already looked into that.
Okay.
So,
but you gotta know, if it was me, I would read every single MCL and see what they're trying to tell me that it says.
Well, here's the question. If I can prove that, if I can quote it and that it does not allow for them to do an API, can I put that in here? Or should I hold
absolutely. On? Absolutely. They don't have the authority to do that because where does it say that in what law? And they can't assume that they have the authority to do that. Government is well defined in their functions and their duties. They can't assume anything. Because once they start assuming, well, heck, we can assume we're going to have an organization called the Department of Gun Registration. No, you can't. It doesn't exist in the Constitution. You can't do it. So they can't assume, well, this says that we can make up other departments. No, it doesn't. If you make other departments up, then they're only for your purpose. In other words, they're only to give you information. They're not ever to be used on the public.
Hang on.
So that's the way you got to kind of look at this.
If it's I'm asking Karen to text the phone. She's got a couple of references there, and I'm like, text to my phone, Karen, so I can put it up. I can't get it off of the chat. I can't do links off the chat. But if you, it says also Sure versus Rhodes from John Hawk says court can't prematurely dismiss complaints. Okay.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. You go in there and there's a paragraph specifically. Thanks, John. There is a paragraph specifically that states that you cannot dismiss the case with summary judgment until the petitioner has a chance for discovery and to prove her claim. That's in Sure. So you got to find that paragraph. And you gotta cite it in there. That's Supreme Court. Try to get around that, Attorney General.
Okay, and then let's see. It's like, John is amazing, and you're doing great, Donna. Hey, thanks. We're learning here, right? And told Karen text to phone. So you know what? This is great because it's like I feel like I've got a whole team sitting here with me that's helping me figure this out against these criminals, right? So Karen just sent, you know what, Karen, I'm going to do this. Jump in backstage and put it in the private chat. I think this is easier because you're finding all kinds of good stuff back there. Can you do that? I'm sorry to ask you to do that, but can you do that for me? She's a great friend. It has read under the first graph under held. Okay, so Karen here, I'm going to take that and we're going to. It takes me a minute to transfer all this stuff, guys, because I've got like 4 freaking screens going, and that's craziness.
All right, here's the paragraph you got to look at, and it's the last paragraph. Here, the complaint explicitly states that Brandenburg seeks monetary injunctive and declaratory relief from state defendants in this court. No, you're seeking monetary relief from individuals who have been put in that job as public functionaries to do a function of government. The language here is what they're trying to twist.
Okay, so say that again. Say that again. Say it exactly as you said it so I can process this.
You're not suing the state. You're not suing for relief from the state defendants in this court. You're seeking relief from the individuals who are public functionaries who have a function who have a specific function in government to follow the law, is a good way to put it. And so you're not suing the state, you're suing the individual defendants. They have the state defendants. No, defendants, period. They're not state defendants.
Okay.
They're individuals. They're stripped of their, and bring Sure versus Rhodes, stripped of their individual capacity. And no, that's ex parte.
That's ex parte. See, I'm learning.
And when you cite this and you pick on these words and you write them out, then you specifically say, because you've already cited ex parte Young once, you say ex parte Supra. So they go back to ex parte, but you've already cited it. So they should be, they can't read past the second sentence, these attorneys. They play these games. This is word speak here. If you go in there and you argue state defendants, you're going to lose.
Okay. And hang on a second. Karen just put something up. I'm going to grab this just real quick. And we're going to hold on here.
See, so the Court of Claims has exclusive jurisdiction of such claims for relief against the state. You're not suing the state.
Okay, hang on a minute.
Officers.
So here you go. There's Sure versus Rhodes. Okay, she sent me that we've got the case up in front of me. Thank you, Karen.
You should have all of my cases. They should all be yellowed by now. I mean, I've said
I'm telling you, I've got them all. It's crazy. So I'll have to go back through. I started pulling some of them off, and I might have to have you resend them because I changed my inadequate filing system right now because I'm doing this all on the fly. I'm bratering this in a way, doing it all on the fly, putting them into trying to get them into files so that I can pull them up when necessary. So anyhow, so here we go to the conclusion. And where did you go next? I'm kind of writing and
we're above the conclusion, where it talks about MCL 600-6419 explicitly requires that such claims for relief may only be filed in the Court of Claims, BS, which doesn't exist. The state of Michigan and the state defendants have not consented to be sued in this format, in this forum. As a result, Brandenburg's claim against the state defendants are barred by immunity and must be dismissed. Okay, that's all crap. That's all BS. That's all legal speak. And it can all be defeated sentence by sentence, actually. Now, one of the things that you want to go back to, and we go back to the first page, where it talks about their use of the API. This is, and they're basically saying that the Department of State developed and utilized the application program interface API tool. Pacific States versus Oregon states that the legislature is responsible for elections. And it says that 1,000 times in that lawsuit.
Say that again, that the legislature is responsible for elections?
Legislature is 100% responsible for the elections. That's why you never take a dispute on elections to the courts. The courts deal in law. Legislature deals in politics. And Pacific States versus Oregon, Pacific States telegraph and telephone and telegraph versus Oregon, which you should also have. And you can read, and you can find the quotes in there to use that say that the legislature is responsible for elections. So that kind of just destroys this part, that the Department of State has developed and utilized the application program. If they would have said that the legislature passed laws that allowed the use of API, then you might have an argument, or they might have an argument here. But the legislature, or but the executive branch, has no authority to do that. And you cannot delegate authority to another branch of government. That flies in the face of the state of Michigan Constitution, which says there are 3 branches of government and one branch cannot do the duties of the second branch of government. And I don't remember what's specifically on the state of Michigan Constitution it says that. Where's my Constitution? Oh, here it is. But they're violating that part of the Constitution.
And then that's basically just that they can't take over another branch's duties.
Yes, exactly. And you can't delegate that authority to another branch of government. Can't be done. So they violated the state of Michigan Constitution. Oh, I know where it exists somewhere in here, but
this is a great learning experience.
Separation of powers, Article 3, Section 2. The powers of government are divided into 3 branches: legislative, executive, and judicial. No person exercising power of one branch shall exercise the power properly belonging to another branch, except as expressly provided in this Constitution.
Okay. I think we're going to nail them here, guys. I really do. I honestly think we're going to be able to nail them. And I think this is an important process to go through. I mean, I really feel like honored to be able to do this kind of stuff because it's something that I've never done before. And, you know, quite honestly, I'm not really afraid of trying anything. And I think that's the way we all have to be, is we have to jump into things we have no knowledge in and just give it our best shot and see what happens, you know? Jump,
if you go
pray,
to
jump, and see where you land.
That's right. If you go to their footnote, see Michigan Department number 2. See Michigan Department of State. New tools allow civil groups to conduct voter registration drives digitally available at new tools allow civil groups to conduct voter registration drives digitally, Michigan Governor, Michigan.gov, list view September 13. I don't have any idea what this says. Last viewed September 13.
I'm trying to figure where it is. Where's the footnote in? I'm looking at it right here.
Footnote number 2.
Number 2, okay. There we go. Ta-da.
You can pick this thing apart. The new tools allow civil groups to conduct voter registration drives digitally available at new tools allows civil groups to. Where did this come from? Where did this authority come from? Is this a legislative enactment, or is this the Department of State enacting this? And here it says voter, and the next on page 2, top of the page, voter registration is generally controlled by statute. And it cites 168.491. You got to find out what that is, and specifically where it says that Benson has the authority to make law.
Okay, hang on a minute.
And then it talks about executive directive. What the heck? Excuse my language. What the heck is a executive directive? Who made this executive directive? 2023-6. That's interesting. This executive directive was made last year. And when did they use the API? It was in the election prior, wasn't it?
Yes.
So
2020.
The timing here is something's wrong. I don't know what this is. I haven't done the deep dive on your document. All I did is read it, and as I'm reading it, I'm saying, wait a minute, all of this stuff. What is this stuff? Who's an executive directive? Is this the executive branch coming up with a law? By an executive branch can't make law. They are violating Article 3, Section 2. Is that what I said it was? Yeah, Article 3, Section 2 of the state constitution. They have no authority to make law.
Okay. Well, I think we got a lot to pick apart here for certain.
Yes, you do.
This is just a really crazy thing. I'm going to bring Karen on just a minute because I think that she's going to be on in the next hour. Yeah. Hey, Karen, how you doing?
Good morning.
Thanks for throwing that the law up there for me so that I can have a quick reference to it. Oh, look I had it here too. I had it in right there. I've got a bunch of them right up there. So what's your thoughts on this, what we've been talking about this morning?
Well, first of all, like I said in the Rumble chat, because that's where I was listening, I think you have jurisdiction whether you're a candidate or not. And there were a number of other individual people on the case that weren't a candidate or anything else. And so even if they dismiss you because of blah, blah, blah candidacy, number one, you have not conceded. Number two, you still are an elector, and you are a Michiganian, and you are an American who has all those rights that you've included in your case. So they can't dismiss you saying that your candidacy doesn't have a jurisdiction because those other things apply.
Can I butt in here? I don't think
absolutely.
I don't think they're dismissing her because she was running for governor. I think they're just trying to taint this.
Yes.
This whole idea is that, oh, you ran for governor and you lost, and therefore you're not really up on what's going on, and therefore we can do as we wish. That's they're trying to make you look bad.
Yeah.
That's okay. I ran for governor. I had everybody trying to make me look bad.
Yeah, so that's the only purpose. The fact that they threw it in there makes me aware that they're grasping at straws. They're trying to pull the wool over your eyes. Well, you ran for governor. Therefore, what do you know?
Yeah, well, that's just it. I'm a peasant because you know what? I was the only one running that was not an establishment candidate. They had them all picked ahead of time. And honestly, I was the spoiler, and that's the truth. You know, that's why they had to get rid of me specifically. When you look at the straw poll, the illegal straw poll conducted on Mackinac Island in 21, they had the 5 candidates that made it basically to the primary. and that they had chosen. They had chosen Kelly, Soldano, Tudor Dixon, and Perry Johnson was another one, and not Perry. I've got Perry was in on it too, and the mayor there, Craig and such, and all of their candidates that they chose, they were on an illegal straw poll, because they only had 5 candidates on that straw poll period. And I was there. They just ignored the rest of us that were running. And so honestly, it was the Republican Party that electioneered even who was being seen. I mean, I was not included in anything, and specifically not allowed on most of what they were doing in the Republican Party, because they had them chosen way before I decided to run.
Of course they did. But
that would make the Republicans there a danger to our democracy.
Yeah, the Republicans are a danger to our democracy, because, this is the real sad truth. And I think that the United States of America, being we the people, need to get our arms around this. The political parties are the ones that they are using to engineer the electioneering that's going on within. And I know there's a lot of good people that are standing up, that are trying to do their best within these parties. You don't matter at that less. They will do exactly what happened at our city council meeting yesterday, where they will do exactly what they want to do regardless. You don't have enough power to change things at this point in time, because there's too many people in the seats that are pulling the levers. And we can say that we're going to change them, but when we might make incremental small changes within the parties, but overall, they don't need your money. They don't need nothing from you, because they're all getting this dark money. They're getting money from smurfing. Tudor Dixon had I'm not saying a million, but she had a ton of $5 donations coming from Arizona. She had all of her petitions. The wording on the top of the petitions was wrong. She should have been disqualified, like they disqualified the rest of us. But no, they just gave her a pass.
Donna, you're being dragged into the abyss of nonsense.
Well, possibly, but I think
the point I'm making here is that they should not have added the former governor candidate. It has nothing to do with the lawsuit.
Right. Well,
and they did it they did it to smear or to sidetrack you, and you don't want to go there.
Yeah.
You just want to, if you want to address that at all, you just said, who cares?
Well, I'm not going to address it in a legal sense, but the point being is that America needs to wake up and realize that the people that we've been taught to trust, they're not on our side.
Never
and I
been.
don't care what label they have.
That's right.
There's the point right there.
I brought it out because it's a sidetrack that they're going to try to use in an argument. Oh, you were the former governor's candidate. Well, what does that have to do with anything?
It doesn't. Well, Denise just put in there that she's being bombarded in emails from the Grand New Party PAC. That's Michonne Maddock right there. State of Michigan GOP, Tudor Dixon. That was the connection to DeVos's right there. And so we have Tudor Dixon leading a training, and Denise blocked their training. Of course, that's good. I'm glad to see some serious intellectual brilliance there, in realizing that all of them were in on it and are in on it. And Ralph's backstage too. I'm bringing it back on, Ralph, a minute. We'll just go ahead and move you guys in. Gretchen Whitmer is also former governor candidate. You could have said, governor, but she's also a former governor candidate. So I don't know. The whole thing is ridiculous.
Well, was she? I mean, really?
Well,
and I'm laughing because I don't know where Gretchen is, but I don't know. I'm just going to digress on that. But I think, like you said, Donna, I was a delegate too. You have to be a delegate and grassroots, blah, blah, blah. Well, that didn't work out for me.
Yeah,
and that's because you can't clean a swamp while you're standing in it. All you do is get dirty.
Well, look at the convention that they had. It was a joke. the conventions that they both have are a joke. The Democrats are out there, doing abortions in front of the convention as their little badge of honor, as they're paying homage to the child trafficking, as well as the other terrible things that are happening to our children. And then you got the Republican Party that sit there in an embarrassment, arguing points instead of getting anything done. And it just doesn't, it's not working. And quite honestly, the Constitution Party, our convention was incredibly orderly. And, I'm going to say I'm not a fan of political parties, even though I'm vice president of the Constitution Party here. I'm not a fan of parties. We need to abolish all parties, but we use the tools we have at our hands when we have them. So what else do you want to go to, John? Is there anything else in this? I think we should just read through this a minute and let them see what their motion is, because we jumped around because you actually.
Well, I don't know if we got the time to read through it because it's already time for your other guests to come on. And we could probably do this more specific, but I gave you the basic
framework
information to kind of start figuring out how you're going to put it together.
Do I use the same format? Do I use the same format that they've used here and go through?
Yes, the front page, except obviously the front page is wrong because they're saying Gretchen in her official capacity. You want to make it Gretchen Whitmer as a individual.
Okay. Well, I know in our case,
you could put brackets, governor in the bracket.
Okay.
Which means
if we listed her as in her official capacity in the lawsuit, can I change that to clarify?
You don't need to change it to clarify. You just need to rewrite it properly.
Okay, rewrite it properly. Okay.
And then when you say brief in support, brief brief in reply to defendant Gretchen Whitmer in her individual capacity, Jocelyn Benson in her individual capacity, and Dana Nessel in her individual capacity, and Jonathan Brater in his individual capacity. Answer to motion to dismiss, something to that nature. In other words, stay away from their office. We know who they are. We don't have to list their offices in there. And so you wanna make the court aware that you're not suing them as a governor. You're suing them as an individual, and that'll keep them out. Supposedly, will keep them out of court of claims because you're going to attack court of claims with Norton versus Shelby County, that it doesn't exist. And so that's where you want to go. You guys have got it all wrong here. You changed the whole. They called you in pro per. You're not in pro per. You're in jury pro prio. So you want to make sure that that's correctly put on there. Those kind of things change we want to go back to the Republic language, not the civil action jurisdiction language, which is all attorneys know how to talk anyway. So you want to go back to the Republic language of the Republic. And once you kind of put a rough draft together, or at least an idea together, then we can go further onto it and refine the idea.
Well, I think I'll have that done by next week. I will have that done by next week, and we'll see, if we can go over it. And we might even be able to just make changes while we're here online. I think that could be really interesting. And with the brilliance out there of John and Charlotte and Denise and Leb and some of the other wonderful people that are out there that actually know the law, Karen and such, we can. Denise says, taxpayer party proves smaller is better. Abolish current government and get rid of the parasites. Yeah, I will agree with that. 2 election cycles, all 3 Soros-backed women in our state were installed. Yep. There you go. So I think that go ahead and say what you're going to say, Ralph.
Oh, just thinking that probably should clarify that this is not legal advice or legal counsel. Not that that actually matters legitimately for anything that they would try to argue, but
Hey, this is directed at this lawsuit that Donna Brandenburg signed her name
Who's
to.
saying we're doing anything legal here?
Yeah,
We're doing things lawful here.
it's
I'm
lawful.
not arguing with you, Ralph. I understand what you're saying.
It's lawful. This is what I'm doing. If you guys want to try something like this, it's all on you, but you got to be willing to jump into the fray a little bit, not be afraid to make some mistakes. And it's like I could care less what anybody's opinion is of me. If we're fighting a battle like this and losing our nation, it's like, who's going to listen to the naysayers? Who would honestly listen to the naysayers that are out there? If you listen to the naysayers that are out there, the freedoms that we enjoy in the United States, you're not worthy of them. You need to stand on your own 2 feet and do what needs to be done, regardless of the naysayers that are out there. There's always going to be people that are going to tell you, oh, you're stupid, you're an idiot, this, that, and the other thing. Why would you listen to these people? Don't be afraid to make mistakes. Just go forward and do what you got to do, because I think that's where we take this nation back. We don't take it back as a nation of cowards. We take this nation back as a nation of the free and the brave, and that's what we have to do going forward. And that even comes in our personal space of not being afraid of other people's comments or emotional abuse to try to stop us. You just gotta ignore them.
It's not how many times you fall down, it's that you stand back up.
There you go.
And with that, I'm going to have to say goodbye. But
right.
I want to let everybody know we have a new website called magnificentrepublic.com. And you can go to that site and get involved with us and find out who we are and what we do. And we're going to meet at Nicola's on Wednesday, which is a restaurant in Southfield, at 5:00 next Wednesday, or this Wednesday coming up. So anybody that's in the neighborhood and wants to stop by and have dinner with us and chat with us, or you're welcome. You don't need an invite, just show up. And that's the same with our with our Zooms, which are other Wednesdays. Just show up. There's no requirement. We take no role. There's no money to be paid. You just show up. If you show up and want to learn some of the stuff that we're doing, please show up and become part of the group and become part of the membership there.
Well, and I think this is the group there. Yeah, the main thing is that we all stand together as Americans, and I think that's the most important thing that we do, is that we have to realize that all the systems that we have been taught to trust in, whether it's at your local level, I mean, quite honestly, local action equals national impact, because these people are breaking the law on a local level on a daily basis. Yep. And the people in each of the communities need to get up in their faces a little bit, and I don't mean in a hostile way, but not just to sit back and go, okay, I guess I'll just go home now and I'm not going to say anything. This is part of the problem on why we're losing this nation, is that when you step up as an adult and have to have your voice heard, of course they're not going to want to hear what you have to say. They're breaking the law. And a lot of them, what I saw last night in Byron Township was watching them trying to save their behinds. In fact, Scott DeBergen came right out and said, well, we're just ordinary citizens. We're not professional at this, blah, blah, blah. It's like, that's not an excuse to break the law. And he flat out admitted that they were taking directions from the state. It goes right back to blaming somebody else for breaking the law or not doing what's right. That's exactly what they did in Byron Township last night. Make no mistake. And it's just too bad. But we need to step up and call people out and instruct them. I'll give them a running start before I say something to let them know in a hostile way. I'll go to the non-hostile first. But if they don't answer the question correctly, and or they don't put themselves in a proper perspective, then it's time to go into them with a little bit more pressure when you use your words. I'm not talking grab your torches and pitchforks. I'm talking you've got to be able to use your pen and your words. There's a lawful process, and the pen is mightier every time. So, well, thank you for coming on today, John. I really appreciate it. And let's jump into this thing and answer them with a spectacular response that takes their little pat yourself on the head, Donna, put your mittens on you and put you out in the playground again and get out of our way, because, you know, we're the kings and queens of Michigan here. Queen Gretchen, the court jester Benson, and the squire Nessel. That's a monarchy here in Michigan.
The three whores of Lansing.
There you go. So, all right, John, we'll talk to you in a bit. And I'm going to go to a real quick break here. I'll be right back with Karen and Ralph.
Bye, y'all.
Bye. We'll see you next week. Be right back with the second hour of Brandenburg News Network. Good morning and welcome to the second hour of Brandenburg News Network. I am Donna Brandenburg, and it's September 24, 2024. And welcome, Karen and Ralph. Well, glad to see you guys here. That was really interesting, the last hour, going through this motion to dismiss that we're going to go to court. So I guess we're going to be working on this because we need to smooth this thing out. You know what I think we should do? I think I should put something up on like Google Docs or something like that, and give access to several people who are brilliant to help smooth this out. What do you think?
Be an interesting way to do it.
Whatever works for you.
I don't know. It'd be nice to have something that people can actually work on and make their comments on. You know, I know you did a lot of the editing on our resolutions for the Constitution Party, Karen, and I love the way you did it and you noted it and you put your thoughts in with that, so that when we went over them in our meeting, we actually discussed every single one of your comments.
Okay.
At length. I mean, every single thing that you put in there. We literally went through this line by line and discussed the merits thereof, or if we wanted to say things differently.
Yeah. Well, like I said to you, I think I put it in my email or something, that I've been taught some things and I don't know if they're true. Like, for example, John just mentioned putting something in brackets. And I had just been thinking about that this morning while listening to him. And I was like, what I was taught was that you should never put anything in brackets when addressing the de facto, because a judge can dismiss or not even pay any attention to anything in brackets. It's separate from the document. It does not apply to the case. So I don't know if that's true. I've been lied to so many times that I just don't know, and it makes me question everything, which is good, but it just means a little bit more work. So that is one thing that could very well be true. I don't think I was misled, but it's something to think about. If you're going to add a thought that you might otherwise put in brackets or parentheses, I wouldn't put it in brackets at this point, because just state what you're going to state. Use a reference. You don't need to put it in brackets. But I'm not a legal scholar, or I am, but I'm, a titch of what John has. He can run circles around me with his knowledge, I'm sure. But so that's just something to consider. And on the concept of the other thought I had was whether you address them in their official capacity or not. And what I sent you a text real quick of was that check that first couple paragraph in that opinion, because they talk about the official capacity in that SCOTUS opinion. So I don't know that you can change it when you say, look, I'm suing you in your official capacity. I don't think in the middle of your case you can change it. But again, I could be totally wrong about that. It may be that if this one doesn't work, that you may have to go back and start all over and do it differently. But I don't know that this one isn't going to work.
Well, we're going to try it because they actually broke the law as acting in their official capacity. There's actually a process that we can follow to watch exactly what happened there. But I want you to look at this. So we're suing them on an individual capacity because they broke the law. They were outside of their official capacity. They did it as an individual.
Okay.
Posing as the governor. When you don't follow the law of the scope of what you're doing under what's allowable by the law, if you follow the law, you've got immunity. But if you don't follow the law, you don't have immunity and can be sued individually.
And technically, the state itself should be holding them accountable for exceeding the boundaries of their official capacity. It shouldn't have to be the people suing. The government itself should be taking action on this.
Well, and honestly, the government, the chief executive officer of the government is we the people. It's each one of us individually should be. We have to hold them accountable. And as part of our civic duty, unfortunately, there's not enough of us that have jumped into this morass of confusion and such to try to hold them accountable and bring forward what needs to be done. But you know what? We're learning, and I don't feel badly about anyone who feels out of their league. I'm telling you right now, I've been on here slogging through this for the last couple of years. Okay. And I'm going to tell you right now, this is not an easy thing to slog through. And it takes an awful lot of focus, as well as, a decent amount of time that you put into this, thinking these things through and finding the actual sources. It's not something you're just going to flip on, fake news and get a headline. You're going to have to dig, and you're going to have the focus to stay with it. And I'm not going to say it's easy. It has not been easy, but when I finally, got up the, I'm not even gonna call it courage, to the point of competency, I figured I needed to file that case. It's like, it's not that I just was going to jump in it without having a little bit of background or having some other people help me with this a little bit. And there are people out there that will actually help you, like John and such. And of course today, like Karen and Ralph have done, but everybody can do what I did. There's no difference between me and anybody else, except for maybe motivation and a boss level characteristic of stubbornness. And I'd say that's my superpower, honestly, is stubborn resolve to fixing what's wrong. That's it.
And, a saying comes to mind from the great Curly Howard: if at first you don't succeed, keep on sucking till you do succeed.
Yeah. Is this we granted certiorari in these cases to resolve whether the district court correctly dismissed civil damage actions brought under 42 USC 1983 on the grounds that these actions were as a matter of law against the state of Ohio, hence barred from the 11th Amendment of the Constitution, and alternatively that these actions were against state officials who were immune from liability for acts alleged in the complaints. So the point being, in these cases, the personal representative of the estates of the three students who died in that episode seek damages against the governor adjunct governor with his assistant, various named officials listed in Ohio. And so this is I think this really does a good job of saying they did it in their individual capacity, not in their capacity as the governor, because as they used a state title to do something that was unlawful. That's the point right there.
Yeah.
And that has to be clearly stated, that they used their office to do something that was unlawful.
So they stepped outside of their office because the office itself is a legal entity.
Correct. And it says Gretchen Whitmer in her official capacity as governor. Doesn't say it against the office of governor. It says Gretchen Whitmer. She used her office in order to break the law. That's what I'm alleging.
Yep.
There's the argument right there. And you know what, when we get this thing figured out to the point where it is we've got all the loose ends tied up on this, honestly, this can be basically copy and pasted into so many other actions against these people, because in their official capacity, because I told them last night in the meeting, I said, just because you're sitting in the seat doesn't mean that you're immune individually for breaking the law when you step outside of the designated duties as a public functionary. Man, you should have seen their faces drop on the table, looking at each other like, can she actually say this? I actually pulled out New York Times versus Sullivan too. They did a good job of letting everybody talk. They didn't actually throttle anybody down, but I just shot out a warning shot again across the bow to let them know that we were watching them.
You brought up New York Times versus Sullivan. I'm so proud of you. Isn't that fun?
I was sitting there thinking about that, and I thought, oh, Karen's gonna be so proud of me when I throw that out there. But I did that in order for them, and quite honestly, what it showed me is that the people sitting in the seats were grossly incompetent and ignorant of the law. And I actually brought up the fact that the city, I said, one of the first things I did is say, I have no faith that you actually care about the citizenry. And they didn't. They passed it, even though there were all sorts of dissents there was not one person for it. And there was a lot of questions that needed to be answered before they just rubber stamped it. They did exactly what the legislature does. They just rubber stamp, and they don't listen to any dissent or have those questions answered. They had no plan, no accountability to answer that. And I said, first of all, the Byron Township alleged that I was guilty of being in violation of something by walking on my property past no trespassing signs, and alleged that I was running a business without proof, which I am not. It's private property, and they said I had to register as a business. You know what? I called them up, and it was not a good call for any of them that day, because they probably, all the two that I talked to, probably lost 5 pounds out of their behind from the ass chewing that they got. I'm like, you are not to come on my property again. You are not to allege that I broke the law, which they alleged. That's what they were alleging by walking on my property past the signs and saying I had to file for a business license. That's an allegation that I broke the law.
So with what they did in your township meeting, if they pass something that the public instructed them against, are they not going outside the duties of their elected offices?
They did.
Hmm.
I said, I want to see what the benefit to the township is from this. And I said, if you're going to tell me that it'll bring in more tax dollars, then the tax structure is wrong and that needs to be addressed. So, because that's what they always say, oh, we're bringing in more taxes. It's like, well, what's the benefit? If that's what they're saying, then they just put on a huge addition to the township hall, because what I heard was they had a $30 million overage. Now, first of all, we have about approximately 15,000 people in Byron Township. For them to take $30 million and poof, it's gone, and they put this big addition on the township hall in order to do that. And they're changing the master plan right now, because as Don Tillman said last night, the chairman, he said that the most important thing is development. He didn't say that the most important thing was we the people. He said that the priority is development. So what the hell is he doing sitting in that seat, not making sure that the residents of Byron Township he sided with a foreign entity that is financed by foreign money. Whenever you get involved with it, the banking system and or where they're getting their funding from, you're talking the big corporate structure, and the Fed is a foreign entity here. They're playing ball with all foreign entities, and they literally walked away from the citizens of Byron Township, and then Scott Tubergen blamed it on the fact that they get their instructions from the state. Right there, they just admitted in front of everyone in a public meeting, in a lawful public meeting, that they're breaking the law.
Wow. No, I had a conversation with a gentleman who became clerk. So I think that's how he got onto the board, because the other one resigned because we put too much pressure on her, telling her exactly where her duties were. So anyway, he gets to be clerk. And they have a noise ordinance that the public had some debate on, but most of the people showing up to the township meetings were against it. And they said at the last township meeting, next month, on such and such a date, we're going to go over the latest version for approval. Or not, but they were hoping to approve it. And what they did then was they called a special meeting on a separate subject. Unless you maybe follow their Facebook page and they maybe put it on there, or they maybe put it on the website, or you drive over to the hall on a regular basis to see the posting, you're not likely to know that they have a special meeting.
No, they hide that, and they're doing things like that. They do it. Not only are they hiding and obfuscating the truth of their actions, they're signing things, and they're hiding that they're signing them, after hours, overnight. The legislature is famous for that. The Congress, as well as the Michigan legislature, they just sign crap after hours and then say, "Oh, we didn't even read it."
Well, they did it legally. But what they did then is they brought up this noise ordinance in a meeting they knew nobody was going to show up to because very few people are going to know about it. They addressed it and they approved of it. And the next time I talked to him, I was polite enough, but I let him have it because you hid this and you destroyed any confidence I had in you. This board was trying to show the people that they were listening, and they had done a pretty good job of at least pretending that they were listening to the voices of the people. They were allowing everybody a chance to say what they needed to say. I said, when you did that, instead of what you promised to us, you hid it. Well, it was going to be approved anyway. A lot of people were silent about it, but they wanted it done. I don't care. You hid it from the people, and you did it on purpose. And now that you personally, in your capacity in office, destroyed my confidence in you, you had been, prior to this, he had been present in meetings and he was listening to what I had to say and chatting with me before or after meetings. So I knew that he was aware of both sides and had been pretty fair about it. Gone out the window. You hid this from us, and I'm not going to forget it.
Yep. And I think what's really important though is that when they do that, you have to reply. I think you've got to get it in the record, and you have to reply either to their I actually brought up put your lawsuits back up this week and see what you wrote. Yeah, I can send it to you, John, too. That I'll send it to you. I can put the one up. You want me to put that one up right now? I can do that. That it's really important for people to go to these meetings and let them know, but you need to write out what you're going to say ahead of time, because if you can't speak extemporaneously, such as myself, you probably should have something to keep you on the rails. And I get off in the weeds a lot, especially like I did bring up the fact that that they hit a tax bill. Peggy Sattler, she's sitting up there writing all kinds of notes. It's like, go ahead and write your notes, but it came from your office, it's got your name on it, and you sent somebody to break the law to my property. And so, and I'm going to stand with that. I will stand with that. And I hope one of these assholes sues me someday. Just lob it at me, because I literally am not afraid of that. I hope they lob it at me, because I'm going to throw all this stuff out in Discovery, and you know what? We'll take them all down. I'm not kidding you. Go ahead, give it your best shot. You want to see me pissed off? You'll see me pissed off. Let's see. So John wants me to put my lawsuit up. Let's see. I'll do that right now.
I found that I usually would write out what I wanted to say based on what I expected they were going to be talking about ahead of time. And I would even time myself saying it aloud so that I knew I would be within the time limit. But as I became more educated about New York Times versus Sullivan, and I brought my case notes with me on that so that I could use it if they tried to cut me off in any way. It didn't matter if I was a little over, I could defend myself, but I still try to stay within the time limit just to be respectful. But a friend of mine who would go was listening, and she said sometimes I was better when I didn't have it all written out or I changed it. And I tended to wait and let other people speak their mind first, because I might react to something other people were saying too. I could improve on it or point it out again or whatever I felt was necessary based on what other people said. So going a little bit later might be helpful for me. But I also was listening, because if they tried to cut someone else off or violate their right in any way, I was prepared to defend them too.
Well, and I think that there's some, as we learn, we learn as we go. So the parties are Donna Brandenburg as plaintiff, Gretchen Whitmer. I'm just going to read the cliff notes here that it took out of it. AI assistant, Jocelyn Benson, Dana Nessel, Jonathan Brater, jurisdiction and vendor. The facts of the case are that the Secretary of State created an API. This is outside of their power to do so. It's all about designated voter registration agencies and turned NGOs into designated voter registration agencies. And if we've been paying attention even a little bit, I want to throw it out there that is where a lot of the crime went on in the 2022 and the 2020 elections. They were using the NGOs. And I'm going to back that up by saying that Gary Bell was a guy that was behind GBI strategies. Okay. Gary Bell started 70 different NGOs. Besides the fact he was the owner, get this, he was the owner of all of those guns they found. Remember the guns they found in Flint? They were semi-automatic and fully automatic firearms. And there was something written on the whiteboard up there that said, and I can quote exactly what it was, but I'm going to paraphrase it now, is take these into the field with you. No locks. No, there were no locks, gun case open, no locks, no gun locks on any of them, with the low lives that they had hired to do the work out there, and then the little gang going on. But anyhow, they designated voter registration agencies, so they changed that to be any NGO that wants to use an API. Now, in the law, it states that they may not do that. There are specific places that they can go. They can direct them to the Secretary of State, but they may not hand that over to an NGO because it breaks chain of custody. And so this is what it is all about, in that the defendants are not immune. It was an unlawful delegation of authority, and then the request for relief. So here we go. This is the case. We've been through this. It's not a real long case, but plaintiff seeks declaratory and injunctive relief to prevent election fraud, the upcoming 2024 election. Well, the NGOs are already using that in the upcoming election, as well as a money judgment. They've already stolen enough from me this process and the from this the entities that be. Let's put it out there. So we're just gonna go after them a little bit. And you know what? Quite honestly, I think I'm going to Robin Hood this a little bit, and take from them and set up the systems the way that it's supposed to be done for we the people, because these morons couldn't do it if you served it to them on a silver platter. Okay. Voter disenfranchisement occurs when a valid vote of an ineligible citizen, a qualified elector, is nullified by the illegal voting of a non-citizen or otherwise ineligible voter. Michigan law 168.509V defines the entity who may legally register citizens to vote, which does not include non-governmental organizations. Yet the Secretary of State's own website publicizes and encourages the use of an API that can be used by NGOs for the purpose of voter registration. This is in direct violation of the Michigan law, and petitioner claims the evidence shows that there's sufficient evidence of maladministration of the process of proving citizenship requirement. And this is where we start. So this is basically, I'll send this to you, John, so you can take a look at it, and we can talk about it further, because they're literally just writing it up as they go. They say, okay, we just want to do this, so we're just going to do it, okay? Because nobody's going to challenge us. Oh, hold on here. Hold on. We the people not only will challenge it, we have to.
Well, I think they're counting on all of us not reading the laws they passed too.
And that they just wrote in. They didn't even pass the laws. They just write them in there through executive order and other means.
They're not expecting, in this case, they're going outside of what the law says, because they're assuming that no one is actually reading the laws that were passed by the legislature to catch the fact that they're not staying within those bounds.
Yep, it's kind of crazy. It's crazy, but we have to do that. I'm going to send you an email, John. And well, if you guys give me your email addresses, this is actually a great way to get a hold of me. Hang on. I don't know if I've got you in this address book on this computer. John, can you, text me your email to my phone, and I will be able to very quickly send this to you. So just text it to me, and I will be able to pick you up from there and send you a copy of the lawsuit.
So I was thinking here, on the topic of off the grid stuff, what kind of, we got all kinds of stuff coming out of gardens right now. What all are you guys doing for
That's like a sharp right turn without a segue, dude.
What are we doing to preserve?
Yeah.
Well, for me, number one, I didn't get much out of my garden. I'm doing green tomato jello jam, which has been fun. Lots of recipes if anybody wants to look it up. 2.5 cups pureed green tomatoes, 2 cups of sugar, boil them together 10 minutes, add whatever flavor of jello you like, and then you can put it in your jam jars just like you would, and preserve that for your sweet bargaining chip or your sweet tooth if everything goes kaput. But you can treat it just like another jam. It doesn't spread quite the same, but it can look and taste just like strawberry if you use strawberry jam or strawberry jello. So that's one thing I've been doing, hoping to get some venison from hunting to can. And I have 1 pepper plant left and some herbs that I have to harvest some peppers yet. Strawberries are dead. I've still got flowering plants because I keep buying them on discounts at the end of the season for perennials. And I was wrong, Donna. I don't have 17 total hydrangeas. I have 20 hydrangeas. But I have, get this, I have 17 in the conspiracy plot.
Oh, that's funny.
So the one has yet to go in the ground. I want to make sure I get it in the right spot. And the name of that one is Let's Dance Can Do. I got that one half off, and it was a good price to start with. So was a little unexpected, but it's an addiction. My flowering plants are doing better than the, than the, you know how we were talking about how everybody has an interest or a skill that differs from everybody else in your community. It
Right.
seems like my interest, being an artist and not doing, while we're talking about this, I'm cleaning my art table off. I need to move my art table out of the window area so I can put plants there for the winter. So I've been really enjoying the flowering plants process this year, which is also new to me. And maybe that's just a joy thing for myself, my family, anybody else. But that's been more productive than our garden. But I learned from the garden. I can do things in the garden. But next year, I think we'll have a lot more focus. If we grow anything, what we grow, that we're going to actually use it and that we will grow it better than we did this year. So it was good. It was totally worthwhile to start and lose, you know?
Well, you got to try things and not be afraid to fail. You know, I was talking at a university years ago. They asked me to be a speaker to their entrepreneurial students, and so I started telling them about all the stuff that I've done, and I threw up websites and such more than I ever talk about on here. And somebody asked, one of my kids was there, and they said, "How many hours do you work?" And he said, "All of them." And then outside of that, somebody asked me, "Have you ever failed at anything?" I was like, "Of course I fail." That's that you're going to fail if you're not like hiding in in the fetal position in the corner. Anybody can do that. Anybody can be in the fetal position in the corner and have great success at doing that. But if you're trying new things, you're going to fail, and it's not an indictment against your intelligence or anything else like that. It's that you're trying things, more information comes in. Maybe it wasn't the timing. There could be things outside of your control, but every time you fail something, classically fail, you're learning, and that makes you smarter. Usually we're smarter by our failures than we are by the things that go right.
Yep.
Yep. Well, yeah, we were just Donna and I were just talking earlier this morning about some of the things to try and preserve, and talking, how awesome like freeze-dried blueberries and freeze-dried apple slices are amazing. And we're coming up on apple season here, so gonna have to start firing up the freeze dryer here pretty soon and get some of those put up because those are great.
Yeah, I love freeze dried food. It's really amazing. I think I've got peppers in there right now. Took the last of the peppers out, and one of my sons who actually loves gardening, massively loves gardening. You guys know who he is, and loves to garden anything. So harvested that out. Next thing for us is going to be potatoes. So last year we took all of the potatoes out that looked a little green, threw them in boxes, and that's what we planted this year for our potato crop. And quite honestly, we have so many potatoes. It is like shocking how many potatoes we have. So I think I'm going to turn them into mashed potatoes and then freeze dry them so that we have freeze dried mashed potatoes for the winter.
Sounds awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Michigan soil really is about perfect for potatoes, and when I was reading up on it, it appears to actually be pretty well perfect for peanuts. I've never tried growing peanuts, but it's supposed to be they take similar soils to potatoes, from what I can tell.
What's the process for growing peanuts? I've never done that.
I believe it's just you get ones that are not roasted and plant them. They're a legume, so
Feel pretty easy.
Yeah, they're a legume, so it's pretty much just like planting peas.
Oh, okay. So I guess we'll have to try that. I'm gonna try that next year. That'd be fun.
Yeah. I got some Jerusalem artichoke tubers and some amaranth seeds that I think I want to try planting because those should grow pretty well. And both of them have great nutrition, and you can use them for all kinds of different stuff. And Jerusalem artichokes are kind of cool because you can leave the tubers in the ground over the winter, and just as you need them, harvest them even during the winter, and they stay good in the ground.
So I got a question. Are Jerusalem artichokes the same thing? We used to call them Mexican daisies. They're the really, really tall ones. They're about 7 feet or 8 feet tall. Is that the same thing? I had a question about that.
Sounds about right. They're in the sunflower family, and it's like a yellow flower, and yeah, about 7 feet tall ish with yellow sunflower flowers on the top.
All right, I can identify that. Let me grab I'm gonna go
They're
ahead
real
and grab
pretty. Sometimes they get called sunchokes too.
sunchokes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let me go through something. I want to go back to something that I've been reading at the Biblical Blueprint series, and we'll go there next. Hang on a minute. So,
I was reading about kudzu too, because I saw a thing where a guy was presenting on all of the good aspects of kudzu. For anybody that's visited the South, we don't really have kudzu too much up here in Michigan, but it was intentionally planted throughout the South, and the a bunch of that was done by the Civilian Conservation Corps. But there's actually all kinds of really good uses for kudzu. And I didn't realize this, but it is also the same thing as arrowroot. So when you use arrowroot powder and stuff, that you can make that, I guess, from kudzu.
yeah, that's Mexican daisy. So they're growing all over the place. Let's see. Wrong screen. Hang on. Let me try that again. Yeah. So I'm sorry, guys.
You'd be pleased to know that a lot of my flowering plants are attracting bees and butterflies, and in some cases hummingbirds too. And I'm not afraid of bees, by the way. Not when they're out doing their business over here. I don't know that I would really want to get involved with a beehive without a suit on.
And smoke. Let's go there. Make sure you use smoke. So
but I tell you, I itched for like 2 weeks on those yellow jackets. But it seems.
Oh, look, they got them in a nice row there. Check that out. So they're actually growing it for food. So yeah, that's Jerusalem artichokes, and you can find that anywhere. I liked foraging for food, and they're using it also as a prebiotic, which I think is really interesting. So a digestive aid, etc. So interesting. That's not it's not an artichoke. It's like they've got the little tubers at the bottom. In fact,
yeah, you can use the tubers in a lot of ways very similarly to how you would use potatoes.
Okay, hang on a minute. I'm going to be right back. Just hold on, and I will show you something really cool. Talk amongst yourself.
So yeah, you can use them. There's a lot of nutrition in them, and whereas potatoes, if you leave them in the ground over the winter, you can have some issues with them. If you don't harvest them and then keep them in a nice dry area. With Jerusalem artichokes, you can leave them in the ground over the winter and they still stay viable as a food source. They don't go bad like a potato would. And some people have some issues digesting them just because of how much fiber is in them. But otherwise, as long as you're eating them, not as your only food, but
Ta-da.
Yeah, there you go.
Ta-da. There you go. That's Jerusalem artichoke right there. And now it's on my computer. So
now your computer gets to sprout them.
That's right. So now we're going to have sprouts everywhere. I want to show you something that this is kind of interesting. So here's Swanson. I have no idea what let's see what they say about it. Swanson vitamins. I'm not promoting them. I'm just looking at what they say. Usually they don't tell you what they do if they're selling them. Prebiotic insulin to help support healthy microbiome. 90% insulin to support digestive health.
Inulin, it looks
like.
Or
inulin. I'm sorry. Inulin. Sorry. Read that wrong.
Yeah, they're supposed to be really good for you, and they're also supposed to just, they grow like weeds. They're a little hard to eradicate once you've planted them in an area, because they're that hardy, which is a great attribute to have for a food source, And they're pretty.
And they're pretty.
Yeah.
Let's see. What else
They
we
got
have?
nice, happy yellow flowers.
Oh yeah, that's the most important thing, isn't
That's
it?
the most
Happy
important
little
thing.
flowers. Okay,
I
let's see.
love sunflowers. Everyone really should be growing some sunflowers too, because that is a great source of oil.
Here we go. We've got sunchoke and spinach, roasted root. Let's see what else we have here. How you can cook these things. Isn't the Google's amazing? Actually, I've got DuckDuckGo, but you know what? I get it. You get it.
Yeah.
I may check with you next year about sunflowers. I've never grown them, but I do have coreopsis, yellow coreopsis, also called tick seed, that I just planted. It is really light colored yellow, and I have a yellow rose bush that I'm going to put into the ground when the rain stops.
Well, that's cool.
All right, Mexican daisies is what we used to call them. Absolutely.
Yeah, I've grown. I've grown sunflowers, like the black oil sunflowers, but I have never been able to grow them intentionally. I've tried growing sunflowers, and it's been years since I've had any sunflowers that I've intentionally tried to grow actually grow. What ends up happening for me is that they're the ones that we feed to the chickens. The chickens just kind of spread them around, and so they sprout up around the chickens. And so the accidental ones, they come up great.
That's how we got those green tomatoes.
It doesn't spike the glycemic, doesn't cause a glycemic spike as potatoes would. Very, very interesting. Wonder how they made the soup. Aren't you curious? This is what happens. We get on the rabbit trail and all of a sudden, oh, there's another rabbit hole to go down here. Look at, there's the soup. Ta-da!
At a French restaurant in California.
Okay. So there we go. I was picking this thing up and I was like, doesn't it look like one of those little woolly, what are they called? Those little bear microbes?
Oh yeah, water bears.
Water bears. It looks like a water bear, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Like I picked it up and I'm like, dude, it looks like a water bear.
Aren't those the kind that they can freeze but still survive?
There, water bear just swam in front of my camera there. So too funny. All right, so where else are we going, guys?
Well, blueberries too. Those are coming up, and those freeze dry great. And then you had some success with just freezing some too, didn't you?
Oh yeah, that's easy. You can freeze almost anything. Some things you have to blanch. You don't blanch fruit. Fruit you just wash it, throw it in a quart freezer bag, and throw it in your freezer, right? You do want to dry it so that they don't have like ice chips around them and such, and then get as much air out of it as you can. With your vegetables, most vegetables have to be cooked or they just get really mushy. You blanch them. So you can freeze onions, you can freeze that sort of thing. If you're not, that freezes pretty well. You can't freeze, pasta does not freeze well. Rice does freeze pretty well, but pasta does not. Pasta gets by and large, unless you're doing it in an uncooked manner that you have to cook. Pasta doesn't freeze well in prepared dishes, but rice does. I've done it. It's not like having it al dente or just right out of the pot, right? But all your fruits can be frozen. If you're doing things like apples or peaches, you want to throw in just a little bit of ascorbic acid just to keep them from turning brown. So that's not a problem. But like potatoes, you have to blanch your potatoes or they'll turn black. You have to blanch your beans, or beans get kind of mushy and disgusting. So most of the time you want to look at a chart for blanching, how long you have to blanch them. It's normally you throw them in boiling water. And I use a spaghetti pot to do blanched vegetables. So you've got the strainer that you put right inside, the basket inside of a larger pot. Makes it easy to take them out that way. So you don't have to use like a spider. A spider is one of those scooping, a large scoop, flat scoop that you can pull them out of, right? And so you can use a spaghetti pot to blanch any of your veggies in and such. You can, squash freezes up pretty good. Quite often I used to roast a lot of that before I'd freeze it. But once they're frozen, it does change some of the consistency. Cook your corn on the cob, cook that and cut it off the ear, after you're done blanching that, you cut it off the ear, and then that's pretty easy to cut that off. And I used to love doing that, cutting it off on a great big wooden cutting board, and then I'd sit there and I'm like a little chipmunk, stuffing the little corn pillows in my mouth. I love fresh corn that's just right off the cob like that. I think that's really good.
Yeah, I had never really had much success with freezing fruit without it basically just turning into a big block.
Well, put a little ascorbic acid into it, and just a little bit, and that's all you really need to do. And when you unfreeze it, then you thaw it out, then it usually works out pretty good. Apples don't freeze really well because there's too much water in them. Peaches freeze really well. Strawberries freeze really well. Blueberries freeze really well, and such. But certain things do freeze better than others.
Apples certainly freeze dry well. I love freeze-dried apples. I can eat way more freeze-dried apples just by themselves than I can apples.
Dehydrated ones. I like dehydrated ones. I've never had freeze-dried ones.
Oh, freeze-dried apples are great because it's like they're not quite so like. I like dehydrated apples too, but they lose some of their structure. Whereas with freeze-dried apples, they're kind of like crunchy, and I mean like kind of the consistency of like, I don't know, maybe a cheese puff.
I was gonna say astronaut ice cream.
Yes.
Okay. And what about Skittles? What is the texture of the Skittles?
Same thing. It's like popcorn, like sugar popcorn. Tried it. Had to try it.
I know. You told me about it.
Jonathan Chapman asked me to make some, and so I'm like, freeze-dried Skittles, is that a thing?
I told you to do it.
Yeah, it's like
I
some
think
of you guys are like
first one, and then somebody else.
Yeah, it's like all of you guys are saying do freeze-dried Skittles, and I'm like, is this a thing? I didn't even know this was a thing. To do candy. First of all, I don't eat much candy, and so it was like, well, that's a different idea. I think I ate a grand total of 2 of them because I'm not a big candy eater. I'll throw up. I've got the greatest nectarines. Costco right now has really good nectarines. So yesterday I ate 2 fresh nectarines, which was a very happy spot for me.
I have to tell you, last I was in Whispering Pines, number 1, they didn't have any maple twists. But number 2, they did have a jewel weed bottle. It's a spray.
Well, that's cool.
So I knew that there was a man selling it at the farmer's market for about $10 for a little bottle. And I think Whispering Pines sells them for about $12. I don't know how they do it. And they don't have, the bottle doesn't give any description of exactly what it can be used for or not. But I wanted to let you know it was there because next time you come up for Maple Island twists or tallow or whatever, you might want to get I don't know. See, I don't know if it would help with the sting of bees or not.
It's an antidote for poison ivy. And so wherever you, oh, hey, David decided to join us this morning. Hey, David, how you doing?
Good morning.
Good morning.
So Dr. David.
Good, how are you?
Good.
Jewelweed will help with nettle sting. Will it help with bee sting?
It works on poison ivy. I can tell you that if you're in the woods, and because I spend a lot of time in the woods and such, if you find poison ivy, look right around it because you will most likely find the jewelweed right next to it. And it doesn't matter whether you have poison ivy or you are along in it. It's a preventative, or if you've already gotten it. Jewelweed is the claimed fame of that is that it works.
It's easy to find too, and reasonably easy to identify because it's in the mint family, and so it looks. There's some of the.
If it's in flower, you got it. If it's in flower, you're gonna find that's hunter orange, by the way. People say hunter orange does not occur in nature. Well, there it is.
There it is. It sure does.
Well, even without the flowers, though, it's pretty easy to identify because it's got the kind of diamond-shaped leaves, and they're opposite, and it's got a square stem, being in the mint family. So we have a lot of it in Michigan. If you walk around in forests, there's a lot of it here.
Yeah. And it's always growing right by poison ivy. They always grow together. It's just sort of like in the old gardens. The reason why we have, honestly, the spaghetti sauce that we have is that the old gardens, that's what grew together, because it's called companion planting. And when you companion plant, you put crops together that help each other. So the pest of one plant is adverse to the other plants you plant around it. Like if you want to get rid of bunnies, plant marigolds. Okay. Rabbits don't like the smell of marigolds. And it used to be that at the end of all rows in the gardens, that we actually would plant marigolds at the beginning and the end of each row in the garden. It's true. And it would keep the rabbits out. If you really want to keep the rabbits out of your garden, plant a whole line of them around your garden, and the rabbits won't even touch it. They don't like the smell of it. I don't think they'll even jump over the top of it, quite honestly. They find better happy munching grounds elsewhere. And
so what you're saying is, for anyone with pet rabbits, they need to just make a fence out of marigolds to be able to have a pen that they can put their rabbits into.
Allegedly, that probably would work. But outside of that, the other thing that you can do is that's the reason why you plant oregano and basil with tomatoes, because the pests of each other kind of prey on the pests of the other plants, as well as the plants themselves are deterrents from each other's pests. So like basil is a great deterrent for the pests of tomatoes. Same thing with oregano, and the same thing. The tomatoes are the pests for oregano and basil are adverse to the tomato plants. So when you look at how all of our recipes in the past come out of the understanding, the understanding of the way that God's world works, because he gives us an antidote in nature to everything, even cancer, which is kind of interesting, And I do believe that. And yes, I had a cancer diagnosis. And yes, I will talk about it because, I haven't talked about it much because I wasn't going to make, the elections all about having cancer. That's the dumbest thing. And I hold it against Tudor Dixon from now until she apologizes to this entire nation. It should never be done. Personal problems have no place when you're there to do a job. You're there to do a job. Everybody has problems, and we can count on that. I want to bring something up here that just real quickly, we're going to touch on this today. Tomorrow I have a couple of guests coming on. Tom DeWeese is going to be on, as well as, I got to think about this a minute. So tomorrow I've got a 2-hour show in the afternoon. I got to make sure I tell Jalise about this, because tomorrow we have
in the afternoon.
Not tomorrow morning. I have Liberty Essentials, and after that, Tom DeWeese is going to be on, and I can't remember the other guy's name, but so we'll be taking up 2 hours tomorrow. But I really want to talk about forgiveness and the ability to have people. I talked about it a little bit yesterday, but we really need to get into this forgiveness thing and not live in the past, because everybody as a human being makes mistakes. That doesn't mean we forgive people who have broken the law, and that's the dividing line there. And crimes against humanity and knowingly breaking the law, as well as being a human being. That is the division. That's the dividing line right there. And so remember to forgive those people around you that have personally offended you, because we can see what happens in people around us who harbor grudges. It's not okay to harbor grudges, and go and talk to them. And if you can't resolve it, well, it's up to you whether you want to hold a grudge against them or not. But point being is that there's a lot of people that are trying to do the right thing out there, and a lot of people who are spectacularly failing at it. And so just remember to not take things so seriously. And when it comes to people, because people are flawed. But with that said, I'm going to give everybody 30 seconds to finish up today. We're going to get into some of this stuff later. But Tudor Dixon, who came up again begging for money with a brand new PAC, needs to apologize to the state. and move on, because already disqualified in the having the ethical standing in order to lead either the state or any part of the nation, by inserting the fact that she had cancer as a reason to give her pity votes. And I have no respect for that whatsoever. So with that said, you guys want to finish up here for 30 seconds?
Yeah, we've talked about that before, about how the cancer industry, once you've had cancer and you have some experience with that, you can see the cancer industry as an industry. You know, it's just like the military industrial complex. Well, there is definitely kind of a cancer mirror of that.
Well, I think it's the entire medical system is a complex that's being manipulated against us for the most
It's the
part.
killing
Make us
fields
sick.
right now.
Yeah, absolutely. The vaccine, God forbid you had cancer and it got better and you took that vaccine and it came back, as they call it, a turbo cancer, even worse. So, but my final, I just started, but
Glad you joined us this morning, David.
is we're really close to elections. Whether they happen on the 5th or not is still up in the air, but everybody should be very hyper vigilant and do their best to, if you see something, say something, and just keep an eye out and think about what could possibly happen.
I would say I think the truth will out. I think we're finding a lot of truths coming out, a lot of wins, as I call it, where you have various prosecutions happening. It seems like a lot of that going around. A lot of the sex crimes are coming out into the news via Diddy, opening up the those kinds of criminal activities in Hollywood, but it's also bringing up in the mind of the normies the connection between those things and Epstein. So I think we're going to have more and more of this coming out. I think it's part of that plan. And in the meantime, instead of being worried about things like elections and everything else that's going on, take the time every day to notice, like I'm watching the rain pouring today all morning, and I'm so grateful for that. We have a lot of things to be grateful for. So be grateful instead of fearful. Be faithful, and everything's going to work out all right. God is in control.
It's going to be okay. Tom DeWeese and James White is on tomorrow. So just, I got James's first name there. So Ralph, anything, or did we already do you?
No, we already did me.
Okay. Well, guys, let's go. We're going to move on to the next segment, which is J6ers, political prisoners in America. And remember, when they violate the rights of one of us, they violate the rights of all of us. And that's why we fight for President Donald J. Trump, the rightful president of the United States. I don't care if you like him or not. I could care less. That is an irrelevant point when you're hiring someone to do a job. I don't care if somebody is the biggest jerk in the planet. If they can do their job, that's fine. That's what we're looking at. And maybe we can help each other along the way. That's what we need to do. Is if somebody's being a jerk, the question is why? Hurting people hurt other people. And maybe we should step in and say, hey, little buddy, what's going on here? Why are you being, without saying a jerk, but what is the problem? In communicating with people, it's necessary. And then those people who are breaking the law, absolutely, they have to be held accountable. That's the dividing line right there. We don't have to like anybody, but right now, every single one of us has the duty, the obligation to stand with America and the processes that were laid out by our Constitution, by the founding fathers, as what makes America unique. One of the biggest things that you will ever do in your life is to defend President Donald J. Trump right now as not Donald J. Trump, as not the rightful president of the United States of what he is, but because he is an American and he had his rights violated.
That's right.
Yep.
So
Very
there
good
you go.
point.
I'm going to go for a quick break here, guys. And we're going to be off Thursday and Friday because I'll be traveling on Friday. And then Thursday, there's another reason we'll be off. But at any rate, we will see you guys. Well, I'm going to see at least one of you tonight. And safe travels, Dr. David. So have
Thanks.
safe travel over here. And kiss that genie for us.
I will.
For us, all right?
Do that.
We'll see you later tonight, and then we'll be talking about all this stuff. And I want you guys to, if you would, go over that that lawsuit, the very proprio lawsuit, and the motion, because I think I'm going to put it up on a Google Docs, and Eric put it out there, put it up on Google, on Google, and we'll look at it, Google Drive. And then we're going to answer this pleading, because we cannot walk away from. It's great to have knowledge, but if you don't act on it, it doesn't matter. It's like we go through the education process to get smarter in order to act. It's not just to sit there in the knowledge. And it says it clearly: lean not on your own understanding, but in all your ways acknowledge him, and he will make your path straight. So we need to act on that. So with that said, I'll be back in just a minute with a third hour of Brandenburg News Network. Bye. Good morning and welcome to the third hour of Brandenburg News Network. I am Donna Brandenburg. It's the 24th day of September 2024, and welcome to our show. We're going to get right into J6ers political prisoners in America, and welcome on Jalise Middleton and Brad Rukstales. Did I say that correctly?
You did. Perfect.
Good. Well, welcome to the show this morning. We're having all kinds of fun, and I don't know if you watched earlier in the week, but I am going over. I think this is fairly important because we need to talk about this. The biblical blueprint for taking back the United States of America, and how Karl Marx has gotten in and has given everybody this entitlement-minded mindset or authority that's happened in our public functionary, the offices of our public functionaries, and how they're using that to try to pull rank on us. Well, they don't have any rank over us. That's just the way it is. We supersede them in all forms of jurisdiction. And also, did you know that Marx was an atheist? He started out as a liberal Christian, went completely to being an atheist. And the problem with that is that it was basically about saying that in the secular humanist way, that humans are in fact God instead of God being God. That's what they were alleging, which we know is a blatant lie. And then not only did they do that, but they used religion as a way, as a tool of communism. And I think this is a really important thing to look at, because just because somebody comes as a title to any and all of us doesn't mean there's any truth to it. We have to really listen and absolutely know who we're talking to, and then also what they're actually saying. But there's a background to this, and it's something we have to remember. Number one, the normal communist practice of deception was used. And number two, the need to infuse stagnating Marxist thought with new religious impulse through the realization that it is a high-risk strategy to impose atheism on a religious society prematurely, and how they actually did that to weave in the destruction of God so that they could sit themselves on the thrones, the Marxist thrones, and designate themselves and the state as God.
Yep. You know,
Yeah.
that's what people don't understand about communism. I have literally heard some of our young people say, who cares? I've heard it. And I'm like, have you ever found a person you would want to worship as a god? Because the reality is, one of the very first things I do is take your freedom to worship away. And then they make themselves God. You go to them for anything you want to do. And you account to them for any move you make while they dictate to you the type of life you're going to have. And
What
I don't
you eat, where you live.
Yeah, how you live. I mean, it doesn't matter what college degree you got at that point. If they want you to work for $3.25 a day, that's what you will do. And it doesn't matter what education you have. It doesn't matter what career you've been working. You're now going to do it for the amount they tell you to do it. And I don't think a lot of people realize that.
As they say, you will own nothing and be happy. I'm going to do Klaus Schwab. He's like the perfect evil villain. It's like, you will own nothing and you will be happy. It's like, yeah, right. You can just shove that. Exactly. I'm going to read the first. Well, I'm going to read the first comment here. Is deception. In this deception of communism, which we are in a communist nation right now. It is functioning not as a republic, but as we are communist right now. We have a way out of it to hold them because we've got the Constitution. However, it is functioning as a communist nation, globalist communist nation. Number one, deception. It is easier to enlist the support of the average citizen if you disguise your intention to destroy everything he holds dear. The communists are out to destroy Western civilization. Marx said so from the beginning. Western civilization is middle class bourgeoisie, and the communists hate it even as they imitate it and buy Western goods. Satan is a deceiver. He prefers to use deception. He deceived Eve. He deceived the nations. He used biblical citations in his major temptations. And last night, I went to our town council meeting, and literally they prayed to Jesus as they absolutely walked away from their oath of office. They didn't listen to the citizen. And I said, well, I know you prayed to Jesus right now. And the main question is this how you would want to be treated? As what Jesus basically said is, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. And they broke that command right there, because then none of them would have wanted to have done to them what they did to the citizens of Byron Township last night. So,
you know, and I want to go back to something you said earlier too, that, you know, somebody started out as a liberal Christian and went full Marxist. Yes, Marx.
Karl Marx.
Yes, I want to go back to that because I hear people make comments like that. And I just want to tell you that there was no way you had relinquished your life to Christ, which is a true Christian, and then went back like that. So there is following Christianity as a religion, and then there is the relationship of relinquishing your life to Christ. Once you relinquish your life, it is no longer your life. So therefore, there is no taking it and putting it somewhere else. So I am very intrigued by the statement. I've heard it a lot. That's just my opinion, by the way. But I don't know how you can like not have something and yet give it away. So
what do you mean? What do you mean, Jalise? You don't buy into this claim it and frame it crap there, holding God to a contract?
No.
Me either. It is apostate. Plain and simple, it is apostate. You don't hold God to a contract. Who do you think you are to hold God to a contract?
Yeah,
the world is his, and we are here being privileged to be included in his good works because he doesn't need us to do them. So absolutely. I'm going to let you guys go on and talk about this and finish out the show here. And I've got a few things to do. Today we're dealing with my mom's ashes. And so we cleaned out her apartment yesterday. And so today we have to go to the funeral home again to make sure that we get that all handled. So kind of an interesting part of life. But all of us have to come to terms with what we do in life. And there's going to be an end date. There's an expiration date on every single one of our lives. And God determines that day. I know I've said it many times, people out there that are criminals, that nobody can kill me. They can't, because God has numbered my days, and I'm good with that. When he calls me home, by one means or another, that is when I go home, and I'm looking forward to it. So
It's a graduation
make
ceremony.
my day, right? So there you go. You guys have a great day today, and it was a pleasure having you on today, Brad, and we'll be talking to you soon.
Great.
God
Thank you,
bless.
Donna.
God bless you.
Oh, Brad, and I was so glad when you told me how to pronounce your last name, because I've never, ever once pronounced it right.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
we're
I'm
going
used to it, as you
train
can
it.
imagine. Yeah.
Because it looks like Rukstales, right? But and that's what I
Exactly.
call you.
Rukstales,
But it's,
Rukstales, I get a whole bunch of things. Yeah.
I bet you get it all, and it is Rukstales.
Rukstales rhymes with Gonzalez.
I love it. A last name that comes with instructions.
Yeah,
One time I
exactly.
saw a meme that said, "I've spent half my life trying to tell people how to pronounce my name."
It feels that way. No kidding.
Well, Brad, I'm happy to have you on. I haven't talked to you in absolutely forever, and it's a shame because you're one of our earliest January 6th defendants that went through the process. So you're probably back to life pretty close to normal. What's your life looking like?
Well, so first of all, thanks for having me on, and thanks for giving me the opportunity to speak with your viewers. I'm happy to share my story. So is life back to normal? I don't think it'll ever be back to normal. And if I can go back a little bit, when I actually I was listening to Donna earlier, she was talking about tomatoes and how she was growing tomatoes and how that's just a part of God's natural remedies for things. And I can't grow a darn thing. So since
I'm on
Gen
a
6,
farm.
I've had time on my hands. I've tried apple trees, I've tried blueberries, I've tried, spaghetti squash. I could grow green beans, but green beans are at our local farmers market. So I don't have a green thumb, but and I also like what she was talking about when it comes to the concept of shame and the concept of how forgiveness is not a very dominant behavior in our society today, and all of that has woven its way through my story, from Jan 6 forward. Before Jan 6, I ran a successful marketing analytics firm, a multi-million-dollar company. I'm a statistician by training, so I have a series of propeller head hats that I have in my drawer that I pull out whenever I feel like geeking out on that. But then I also got an MBA from the University of Michigan because I had an entrepreneurial interest at the time. So in 2002, after 9/11, 9/11, 2001, the advertising business went into a deep recession. And I was in that business working with some of the Madison Avenue advertising firms. And at the time, I realized I saw the writing on the wall. So I decided to hang out my own shingle, so to speak, and start my own analytics company. And I was able to start as a solo consultant and worked with some of the largest telecommunications companies, auto manufacturers, financial services organizations. And over the course of time, added staff. And by 2020, I had 40 employees, multi-million-dollar business. I would speak at the conferences. I would be interviewed with the trade press. And in addition to that, personally, I was able to travel to South Africa, to travel to Italy for my honeymoon, and really enjoy the blessings that I had received during that time. I've been a Christian.
Huge.
Yeah,
That is very huge.
It's something that I always wore as a sign that I've done something right and that the good Lord's blessed me, but I've also used my brain and worked with other smart people to build something that had credibility and integrity that I could feel proud of. I've been a Christian my whole life. Both my parents brought us up in a Christian house. My father was a choir director. My mother would accompany him at choir at the Lutheran church in the next town. I gained an interest in music, and I was a music major for a while at Indiana University.
You like to learn.
I do. I like to learn. I like to challenge myself, and I like to express myself in different ways. So,
Wow.
So fast forward, I became a worship leader as my wife and I got married and joined a local congregation, one of the largest Lutheran churches in the Chicago area. and I was able to lead. I was able to write music. I wrote a musical for the church with brass and strings and the whole thing. So I was really able to fulfill what I believe God was asking me to do musically, and that gave me such a sense of doing His will in my life at that time.
That is such huge achievements. You definitely didn't do that alone. That
No,
is
not
such
at all.
a God movement in your
Not-
life.
Yeah, I ended up writing that in about 17 days. So I not quite like Handel's Messiah. I would not. He wrote his in 11 days, and his is much longer. But no, but I worked with my employees. I said, hey, look, I'm taking some time off, and I've got something I just feel inside me that's coming out. And we ended up performing it on a Good Friday, a couple months later. And that was truly, it was God running that. I was just transcribing as fast as I could. And all the glory be to Him for that time in my life. And after that, I became a member of the school board of our church, and then I became the president of the congregation for several years. And at the time, with my business success, I also started a philanthropic organization where I had a lot of employees that would come from, say, Eastern Europe or India. We were very technical. We're into databases and predictive modeling, and that's where a lot of that technical expertise was from. So I started this foundation so that we could invest in my employees' hometowns or their home countries, and I'd ask them to find some cause in their own area that they could feel proud of, and we would contribute. So we ended up giving, working with an orphanage in India. We gave them a whole playground, whole new set of beds and bedding. We worked in another area for like women's shelters, so we could help them not be brutalized by their local gangs. And then I also have an interest in micro-lending, and so part of the foundation focused on micro-lending in South Africa. So I was able to go to South Africa, and a business partner of mine and I would sit there and we would listen to people come to us, and they would say, hey, I just need money to buy a case of tomatoes, so then I can sell tomatoes one at a time out in my stand and make money that way. And so it's very, everything from that to a guy that ran a dry cleaners, who one of his dryers broke, and he's not able to get a contract with a hospital unless we help him fix his dryer. So we gave him the money to fix his dryer, and then the next year he was expanding. We gave him money to expand, and our church had a local school. Our church sponsored a church down there that had a school, and they all had uniforms. So we funded this young man to have a second dry cleaners right by our school, so people could take their uniforms there and really grow that South African township that we were active in. So I was very, I was involved in many different ways with my faith, but at the same time, I was also extremely committed to my business. And I would, as you can imagine, as we're growing, I would be traveling quite a bit, and I was not around my home a lot. I have a great relationship with my children, and I've been there for the important things as much as possible. But my wife and I had an agreement where I would work during the week, but my weekends were for her and the family.
And how many children did you have?
So I have two daughters. So they're 24 and 28 now. But
and how long have you and your wife been married?
We've been married
30, you better know that.
32 years, 32 wonderful years.
Amazing. So hold up, because I always try to, and I'm trying to wrap my brain around this. Number one, I feel pissed, to be honest, because you were doing so much for our world. You were providing so much. It created a hole. The government deemed whatever you did as a bigger atrocity as everything you were doing for the welfare of others that benefited our entire world. I mean, not just in the United States. Yeah. And there are several J6ers like this. I happen to know of one that his last name's Easter Day that was delivering Bibles over to the Bahamas to 5 churches that had no Bibles. And he was sailing down there with Bibles. I mean, this is the atrocities of our government trying to stop anything good from going on.
Well, they're not going to stop me. And I think God's story is bigger than their story. and you know, I still have some nuggets to share with you about that as well. But I understand. I mean, I'm livid with what our government has done. I'm livid with how they've treated us. You know, if people are interested in hearing more about my story, I do have a Substack. It's called Falling Rocks. So people can go to Falling Rocks at Substack and they'll see my story. I've got, it's going to sound intimidating. It's 24 installments, but they're each very short. And it talks about my journey from where I was to my journey through Jan 6, my sentencing, my time, my 30 days I did in prison, and then some of what I've been through after that.
And so, now, what were you convicted of?
So I was convicted of parading. So the parading charge that so many of us have had. On January 6th, I attended the rally, and then I saw that a whole bunch of people were over at the Capitol. So I walked over there and I walked up the steps, and there were police officers there. I was on the west side. I wasn't part of the tunnel. I was not in that area at all, but I was on the other side, and the doors were wide open, and people were walking in a single file, and the police were there. And I just figured there was some place inside for us to protest, or at least assemble. So obviously not much smarter now. I would never do something like that, but kind of in the moment, I'm like, okay, I'm going to see what this is about. And I went inside.
When the police are acting like a tour guide,
they were.
And you have red ropes that everyone's following along in.
Exactly.
Like, people don't understand what a setup it was. You had someone open the doors from the inside out. You had some police waving people in. Everything was peaceful. Like, so what that they're chanting? That is not peaceful. They were chanting beautiful things. They weren't saying death to America.
No, not at all. Not at all. And so when I was inside, I walked down some of the stairs. There were other people walking down, and there was a chair in front of me that had fallen down the stairs, and I picked up the chair and I tossed it to the side so that nobody would fall over it. And I would later be told that I was throwing that at police officers because, like, a minute before, some police officers had walked by that area. So they made my entire story about me throwing chairs at police. They didn't have that piece of
video, right?
No. Well, no, they had the police walking, and then later on they show me, tossing a chair to the side, and they tied the two together. Now, luckily, the judge didn't listen to that too much. But then we walked up to a door, and the officers were there, and there were people peacefully talking to the officers and just saying, hey, this isn't right, what's going on, and we should be able to protest and have our voices heard. And then the crowd grew a little larger, and then there was a person dressed in all black. I'm sure it was an Antifa person. I can't verify that, but certainly they looked like they had military type headgear and chest, and it wasn't the Proud Boy look that I've seen before. And this person sprayed some sort of gel or spray right into the eyes of the officers that were protecting the doors. So the officers immediately jumped out at the people at the front, and I was about 4 people back. And as they jumped out, they tackled those people, and I turned to leave. And as I turned to leave, I was bumped by somebody, and so I was about to fall, so I just put my hand up, and they happened to be a police officer. And there was another officer across the way that saw me do that and thought that I had initiated contact with the officer and tackled me to the ground. And then I was dragged behind the police line, and I spent the next several hours in plastic cuffs.
So you were
dragged around the Capitol. Yeah.
Wow. You're one of the few I've heard that happen to.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, I could be notably one of the first arrestees of Jan 6. And at the end of that night, I was told that I would be charged with trespassing by the Metro Police, that I would have a court date that was more like a citation than an actual ticket or an arrest. Court date in June, pay my fine just like a traffic ticket, and I'd be fine. So even though I was somewhat horrified at what had just happened to me, at least I felt like, okay, this will come and go, this will pass. And of course, my wife was trying desperately to get a hold of me. She came with me, but she and my daughter were far away from the Capitol.
Praise the Lord for that.
No kidding. No kidding. So I found my way back. And then the next morning we drove back I'm from Chicago area. So we drove back to Chicago, and mid-morning I got a call from my assistant saying, "Hey, we're getting phone calls from local press. What's going on?" I said, "I don't know. I mean, I'll tell you what happened. I mean, I got arrested for trespassing and it didn't make any sense to me, but it didn't seem like it was any big deal." The next thing I know, there's a group of people around my building that I own for my company, and that they are trying to get people from my company to come out and talk, and they felt harassed. And next thing, so then I'm told to look at the CBS lunchtime news, and there's somebody outside my house doxing me, showing my address, showing all my political contributions of the prior year. And I thought, oh my gosh, this is terrible. How am I going to deal with this? Like, none of this makes any sense to me. I was having this the reality of it was just starting to dawn on me. Like,
you can't fathom it. You know what?
You can't fathom it.
Citizens does not have a category in their brain. So we're sitting here like, no, you don't understand. And then you think, this will get cleared up. They're just confused.
That was exactly it. And by mid-afternoon, I realized I had a crisis on my hands. So I started calling around to some of the PR people I know to see if I can get a PR consultant to handle this for me. And I found someone, and he said, "Well, you need to get in a good attorney as soon as you can, and we need to get a statement out to the media." So I got a statement out to the media just saying, "Hey, look, since I've been arrested and set free, I've seen some of the things that looked violent. I had nothing to do with any violent interactions with anybody. I shouldn't have been in the Capitol that day, but I'm looking to have this peacefully resolved, and that was it." Then I went to work to find an attorney, and one attorney in Chicago said they wouldn't touch it. They were like, we're not doing any of this. So then they sent me to somebody else, and somebody else had a conflict. I'm not sure what conflict they had. So I ended up with a DC attorney. And they got in touch with the FBI, and the next morning they found out I would be charged with 4 misdemeanors, and that I would be indicted, and that I needed to get myself to DC. So parallel to that, all of my clients that are national clients have boards of directors that they're beholden to, and these boards of directors said we can't have our company associated with Brad or his company as long as he's a part of it. So the company I spent 20 years building, I had to walk away from 2 days later. And that was painful, but I have to tell you that, like, my head was in such a different space, because I'm, at that point I'm a trauma victim. And I'm not thinking straight. I'm like, okay, whatever I have to do. And of course I'm concerned about my employees, their families.
And it's sheer love that you didn't come in with pride and say, "To hell you say, I'm not going nowhere. You all can go suck eggs." Like, you didn't do that. And I couldn't have the mindset to be able to do it, because I know I've been J6. I know. You're just like, holy crap, these people are confused. What am I going to do?
Well, yeah. And I take I take my role as a leader to be protective, regardless of what I'm going through, to be protective of those that I'm in charge of. And these people have devoted their careers to me and their lives to me. And regardless of how unjust what I was going through was, all I would do is just destroy everything I built if I went in there and took that attitude.
Yeah.
And I'm very thankful that I have a business partner who's a good man, good Christian man, who just said, "Hey, look, I'm just trying to tell you that I think this has to happen." And we'll figure out the details later. But if we want to save these clients by 4 o'clock, I need to be able to tell them that you're gone from running the company. I said, okay. So I turned myself into the FBI the following Monday. And that was probably the most humiliating day I've been through, for the places they took me, the way I was tied up and chained up and all of that.
Describe that for a second, because I know from watching my husband, I mean, they told him don't wear shoes with laces, so he put on a pair of flip-flops.
All
And
of
then
that, yep. No
tackled his
belt.
ankles and,
Yep,
you know,
I had,
a waist belt with his hands down by and doing the
Yep.
little shuffle. And these are not criminals.
no.
These are
And they
people
put,
that walked in integrity.
and they put me in a pretty bad local jail in DC while I was waiting my time with the judge. And
Was that the gulag?
no, this is not the gulag. This is like kind of a local metro jail, a kind of a holding place. And it's the first time I've ever been in any jail like that in my life. And I walk in, they shackle me up, they bring me down to a cell. And there's two steel beds or two metal beds. Somebody's on the bottom bunk. I didn't even know how to get on the top bunk. And the guy he's like, toilet, sink, bunk. So I had to step on the toilet, step on the sink, and go up on the bunk.
Which is very interesting to point out, because I've done some studying on prison etiquette, okay? Because there's a whole new governing system within the prison.
Oh,
and
yes.
one thing you don't do is you don't dirty up the sink or the toilet if you don't want to get beat up.
Yeah.
And so I'm intrigued that that's the way you did it. So
It's
that
the only
was
way-
territory.
Yeah. And so I'm lying there with my coat as my pillow, and there's bugs on the walls, just crawling around. So I sat there for a couple of hours. I heard a lot of yelling and screaming. What was interesting is I heard an older African-American gentleman lecturing some of the younger guys that were in there about responsibility, about how Trump isn't a bad guy and you need to look at his example. And I thought that was fascinating just hear that and just to hear them talk back and forth. And that, yeah, exactly. In DC, in a
people
jail.
were not awake then. They didn't. All they knew was what was being fed to them by the media,
That's right.
not realizing the media had been taken over.
That's right. That's right. So that was very very interesting to me. So then I was taken. What the kind of the silly thing is, then I was taken to an office where I had my discussion with the judge over the phone, which I could have done from Chicago, or I could have done from my own attorney's office,
But it
or I could have
wouldn't
done
create
from anywhere.
humiliation.
That's
They
right.
needed to humiliate you.
That's right.
We have a saying in the J6 community that the process is a punishment. Like their whole ideology
100%.
is to annihilate you every single day that you breathe until they have nothing else to destroy you over.
That's totally accurate. And I've not had anywhere near the sort of firepower thrown at me that so many others have. But this is my little version of that. And
no tank on your handicap ramp.
right. Exactly. So then they brought me back to my cell, and they said, we're just waiting for the paperwork. They were going to let me stay there overnight and extend the paperwork until the morning. And my attorney said, hey, it's 4:15. You have 15 minutes until you're done with work. Get this thing signed and let me get this guy out. So my attorney, I have issues with my attorney, but that's one thing he did that I'm extremely thankful for, because that would have been a torment that would have been completely damaging to my soul to have to live through that.
I stayed overnight, and when they come to get me the next morning, the FBI agents to take me to the arraignment hearing, they're searching me. Now, mind you, you got strip search to go in the prison.
Right, exactly.
Now they're giving you your clothes back, and they're patting you down, and he goes, you don't have anything on you, do you? And I still had my sense of humor. I'm like,
yeah.
God, I hope not. Referring to the bugs, because there's lice, there's fleas, there's hot flies.
Yeah, exactly. Oh man. Yeah. So you might have a few things on you that you didn't have before. I will say during that day, before I ended up at that jail, I had to go get fingerprinted and my mugshot at the Metro Police Station. And there's an older black gentleman who was kind of running that part of the operation. He takes me to the side. We're talking a little bit, and he takes my fingerprints, and then the FBI agent that was driving the truck said, "Hey, I'd like to work at the, in police. Can I practice fingerprinting?" I said, "That's fine with me. I have no place to be." So I just sat there, and then he's teaching this guy how to take fingerprints with my fingers. I'm like, "Hey, if I can be helpful to the cause in that way, sure." Before
Well,
I understood the
what's
depths
funny
of the
is they do
FBI.
that with everybody. They fingerprinted and took DNA from me and my husband
Oh,
going to that arraignment hearing.
wow. Wow. Well, on the way out, that officer said, "Hey, man, I hope everything turns out for you. You seem like a good guy, and whatever happened, this doesn't seem like it's right." And I thought, okay, there's a lot of people that get it that you don't hear from in this world. And
Yeah.
so, unfortunately, the media narrative is so overpowering and punishing that it outshines anybody who has anything kind or nice to say about that day.
That's right.
So-
And they railroad anybody that does,
100%.
when I went for the federal fingerprinting. So just so people know, you go through local fingerprinting and then federal fingerprinting
Right.
when it's a federal offense. The U.S. Marshal that was fingerprinting me, when I walked in the room, it felt so cold and icy and demonic. I mean, I was scared, and I shuffled my way into the little box to get my picture took and all that. And he hadn't turned around, and then suddenly he turns around, and I'm expecting him to be mean and hateful like everybody else had been. And instead he's got tears in his eyes, and he goes, "You just need to know I'm retiring at the end of the month. You're the 6th J6er I've seen come through here, and this is not the country that I served all my life to in the military."
Yeah.
And it just helped reaffirm me that, okay, I'm not going crazy here. Because I was trying to figure out what was happening to me still. I'm like,
Right.
people are so silly, Well,
Yeah. Well, that's good. Yeah. Again, it's just the exact same thing. I mean, it's a sign that people certainly in the the law enforcement community certainly see what's going on. So,
yeah, absolutely.
So fast forward, I had a plea deal where I would plead to a statement of facts, and I would plead guilty to parading around the Capitol. So I did. I didn't love the statement of facts. I wanted to make some changes, but this is where I wish I would have had an attorney who was a little more attentive. Now, again, I've never been through the legal process before. So I was looking for an attorney to kind of walk me through and say, like, okay, here's what this means. Hey, here's the ramifications of this. And despite the outrageous amount I paid, I didn't get that sort of advice. So I think my attorney clearly was tied to the DC legal industrial complex.
Sure, they're trying to
in many
promote us
ways.
in the system.
Yep. So
They make themselves part of the cabal by trying to
are.
hold the hope for moving up the ladder.
Well, and I saw that during my sentencing. A lot of J6ers with this one offense would just have a 30-minute sentencing hearing. And it's like, okay, you've got probation or something, or community service. Well, this is right after Matthew Graves was appointed. And I was one of the first cases that had a prosecutor who was underneath Matthew Graves. And this person spoke for about 2 hours about me, and he had slow motion video of this chair. I have hearing aids, and after I was tackled by the police officer, one of my hearing aids had fallen on the ground. There was one officer telling me to stay down, and then another officer was telling me to get up. And I'm like, I'm staying down because that's not an aggressive act, because I'm not sure who to believe and I'm not sure what's going to happen.
So in my case, I had cops saying push forward and cops saying get back.
Yeah, exactly. It's like you don't, and that's why I just said I'm going to do the least aggressive thing I can and just show I'm compliant. I'm just laying on the ground, move me where you want me, tell me what, take me where you need me. But he used that as me being defiant against police, and even showed me in slow motion on the ground, which is just crazy. And the video went to the press, and I was on, my story was on CNN. I was international. I mean, I have friends in England who have been dear friends, and they couldn't believe what they were watching, seeing me on BBC in outside of London.
And there's a reason they couldn't believe it, and it's because it wasn't true.
Yeah, of course it wasn't true. And I was sentenced to 30 days in prison, and I was devastated. I couldn't even imagine that someone like me, and with what who I've been all my life, and what I've been, and and of course I sit there at the time and go, man, did I really do something wrong? I should have known better. Yeah, exactly. And so I had to come to grips with the fact that I was going to be entering a federal prison facility, and while 30 days doesn't seem like a long time, well, you've never been through it before. The anxiety, of course, is something you can never believe.
Oh yeah, one day is too long. Like, you cannot fathom surviving one day, let alone anything else. And I understand, because I'm looking at 9 years, and I'm like, I know for a fact I won't live through that. I simply won't. I don't want to, and I'm not going to try, because if I lose my life, I'm going straight to my daddy, and at that point, he will redeem my blood.
He will, and God is just, and God will provide. Sometimes I wish he'd provide a little quicker with a little more clarity.
Indeed.
But he does provide. And the crux of my story that I really want to get to is while I was in prison, I brought a Bible. I brought several Bibles with me. They only let me bring one in. And as I was reading the Bible one day, one of the young men came over and said, "Hey, is that the Bible?" I said, "Yeah." He's like, "Hey, can I read that?" He said, I haven't read that in a long time. And I was in the quarantine floor, so a lot of these were people that were had just come in, or they were people being transferred between areas. And I said, absolutely. And that's why I wanted to bring a second Bible, because I've done that before. I bring a second Bible, and then for some reason, someone ends up asking for it. I did it at an airport in South Africa. The security guard was looking through my stuff, and he said, "Is that a Bible in English?" I said, "Yeah, it's a little pocketbook Bible." He said, "I've never had one before." I said, "Here you go, young man." And he was so grateful. So I wanted to do the same thing, but they wouldn't let me have two Bibles, and I really needed to read it myself. So he and I shared the Bible, and I learned that a lot of people in prison are way overcharged.
Yep.
I'm learning that our justice system is misnamed, far beyond Jan 6, as I hear the stories of these men. And I mean, there are some people that definitely needed to be in there and be in there for a long time.
But
and
they
I
usually
sat with them
admit
too.
to it.
Well, and that guy did. The guy that was in there for 17 years, he's like, "Oh yeah, I messed up. Yeah, I totally, they caught me."
Yeah. Uh-oh, you got knocked out. So y'all know the FBI absolutely hates for our story to get out. They hate for the truth to get out, and they do everything they can to keep it from it. So welcome back.
So sorry about that. For some reason, my phone, someone's got a scam call coming in.
Oh, okay.
And then,
How convenient.
no, good grief. So, and prior to my sentencing, or prior to me going to prison, I had a 50-mile radius around my house that I was restricted to. So my wife and I learned all about Northern Illinois. She would joke that if I'm bad to her, she's going to go drive 51 miles away, and there's nothing I can do about it.
I see y'all learned how to laugh through it too.
And we decided to listen to a guy named Monkey Works on YouTube. He had a special series on Revelations at the time. And he had two pastors, and the three of them would talk about Revelations, and they would spend an hour, roughly like an hour per chapter, or an hour for two chapters. So they had like 9 or 10 of these episodes, and we would just drive and listen, and we would stop and talk about it, and stuff we didn't understand, we'd go back and listen again. So I'm in prison, and there's some guys talking in the hallway, and they said, "Hey, Brad, you probably know about some of this. What do you make of this?" And it was this tall Hispanic gentleman who had tattoos all over his body, and he had a big 666 tattoo on his ankle. And they asked me, like, did he take the mark of the beast? Like, he's really worried. Like, that's a part of his life in the past, and he's really worried. And I said, well, what I can tell you is when you take the mark of the beast, you know what you're doing. You're going to be doing it because you know you are signing up to go to the dark side, and you're signing up to reject Christ and reject what God has given us here on earth. And you won't be fooled into it. You won't do it because you think it's cool. You're going to do it because that's a decision you're making. And I don't know you, but I don't think that's the decision you made when you got that tattoo. So I said, that's 666. This is meaningful as 667, 668, 729, whatever. I said, you're good. I said,
What a good answer.
I said, I hope you're look into your heart, and I hope that you're in a different place now, because God will love you, regardless
Even
of that time in your life.
He sees us stark naked, and I don't even think he even sees skin, if you want to know the truth.
I agree. And I'm sitting there going, well, God put me in that book of Revelation and then put me in that prison so that I could have that conversation with knowledge and certainty with that young man who was looking to hear it. And so after that time, I'll skip some of the stories. You can read them in my Substack. But God gave me a lantern. And the context that I have is that God picked me up and said, okay, you're done with that life you had. You're done with running that business. You're done with those people, because he permanently closed that door. Employees haven't talked to me since. I had some friendlies on the client side, but nobody would work with me again.
Right.
So God clearly said, you are going to be doing something else with your life now. You're done. And I'm fortunate that I was able to sell my business to my business partner, not at a fire sale, but certainly not the value that we had built over the years, but at least it's enough to springboard me into what's next. And I've tried a lot of things. I tried to rebuild an analytics company, and God said, nope, it's different. So I thought, okay, I really had a heart for the men I met in prison. So I wanted to go into prison ministry. So I spent time and effort. I met somebody at this local post-jail prison recovery center where young men go for 7 months.
Hold on. Are you telling me you didn't get enough of prison after 30 days?
I felt such a heart for the men that I met.
What the enemy intended for evil, God intended for good.
He did.
And you claimed it, and you're like, party on. I know
I
who
did.
you guys are.
I did. But God again said, no, I don't want you doing that. Because I was all gung ho. I went to this training meeting, it's a whole day meeting, Saturday down in Joliet, Illinois. And at the end of it, the guy that's running it said, hey, well, and you just have to fill out your application. And as long as you haven't been in any, prison or jail for the last 2 years, you can do this. I said, are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? Good grief.
I'm not even good enough to minister in the prison.
So I went up to him afterwards. He's like, oh, Brad, he's like, Brad, I didn't even think, even though you told me your whole story, I look at you, I'm like, no, he's not, he's good. He's never been in prison.
Yeah.
I said, I know. I said, I still try to think that too, but I've got some memories that tell me otherwise. And then God also decided to add several more trials to my life. One is I have a condo in Captiva, Florida, and I had that condo since 2013. And I was relying on that for some of my income, given that I couldn't get work after Jan 6th. Well, in September 2022, there was a hurricane that wiped out the entire resort in my condo. So he decided to add some more financial stress to my life. And so
are you telling me everything that you relied on as your identity and your support system, he broke down?
You got it. And he was very firm about that. And I said, okay, God, where are you putting me? And I was never, as you can see, I'm a very positive person. I try not to spend time wallowing in my sorrows. So I just said, okay, God, what's next? Tell me what to do. Where do you want me? He finally, who knows, anything can happen. After a few other financial setbacks, like all my cars going kaput in the same month, I'm on my knees going, okay, where do you need me? And a pastor friend of mine from 20 years ago, when I first started worship leading, reached out to me, and he said, "Hey, Brad, I need someone to lead worship at his small congregation on the other side of the suburbs." He said, "Would you mind doing that a couple times a month?" And so I reacquainted myself with him, and he just gave me strength, and like that helped me with my soul. Like, okay, I feel good. I've got a team of, or I've got a congregation of, small congregation, but I would lead, and they would be so thankful, and we would celebrate and joy and raise our hands and praise the Lord. And then he put me in touch with a friend of mine from high school, who had started a ministry. He's into personal development, and a lot of what he does is helping people overcome the feelings of inadequacy and shame that we have in our lives. And he's got he and his business partner, a wonderful woman who I've come to love dearly. They've been running this company for several years, and they said, we're doing it as a nonprofit, and the Lord is closing that door on us, and we want to do a for-profit, thing. We want to be bigger. We know we can touch more people. We can help the souls of so many more people, but we're not business people. We don't know how to build it. We don't know how to run it. We don't know how to grow it. And so we spent a lot of time together. We prayed together, and here we are. We started our company this February, and we're building out a product to give people mental toughness. But we're also having these weekends where people can come and really explore why they are what they are, and what's that thing holding them back from really living that full life that God wants them to have. Because we all have those things that hold us back. And our society is so full of shame. Our society is so much trying to tell us we're not worthy, and that we will be judged by the most egregious thing that society thinks we've done, not by the patience and love and kindness that we offer to people every
And
day.
it's the furthest thing from the truth. The scripture tells you, blessed are the poor in spirit, for they shall be comforted.
Right.
If you run to it and confess it, people are even non-believers are faithful in embracing and saying, brother, we're going to get you through this.
Yeah.
They may have all the wrong answers, but instinctively people want to help one another.
They do. And that's what's so tragic about communism coming to our country. They couch it in kindness. They couch it in, take responsibility for your neighbor. And it all sounds great until they have to kill 100 million people to make it actually work.
Right.
Right. So like I said, the Lord picked me up and said, you're going to do something different now. And instead of focusing on a business and growing that, he's got me focused on people's souls, people's hearts, and helping people heal. And I feel like as a J6er, we all know what that's like, that we have to heal. We've all been through trauma, and we have all been through unexpected things and had to think about things we never thought we'd ever have to think about.
Right.
And my life is now dedicated to bringing people into that closeness of what they can be. And we're looking at people that are really on the trauma side, but we're also looking at people who are leaders but still have things that are in their way.
Sure.
People that are like, I just can't quite get there. And we're talking to organizations, as the military, law enforcement, as well as different Christian organizations who work with pastors. So we're casting the net wide.
Beautiful. I am just giddy over it because I know that not only from my own church home, but my own experience, that you can have your life really together and submitted to the Lord, but there are still those internal tapes that you will fall right back into that cycle when you get to that
That's
point
right.
every single time.
That's right.
I've called mine a strong man of burden, that I feel like I'm a burden to the world. And it's a lie. My head knows it's a lie. I know it's a lie. But yet every time I get in that situation, I go right back to that cycle.
Well, and Jalise, we get a lot of those signals from our childhood.
Yes.
So for me, like you said early on, like, yeah, I'm an achiever. I'm always doing something. I'm always learning new things. And I'm known as what's called a hyperachiever. And that means that when I was young, I probably gained a lot of positive vibes from my parents or those around me for achieving things, for finishing things, for getting things done. So I learned that that's my power in life is to get things done and work hard. And that's good until it becomes a burden or until it becomes a barrier. And
Right.
everything's about,
Because God tells us when we humble ourselves, when we don't try to do it in our own strength, that's when he can work through us. And so when you're so good at doing it yourself and being the leader and making it happen and and task oriented, and you're overburdened, mad at the world for it, but you get it done, then Christ can't work through you.
Right. That's right. And the hardest thing for me has been what my pastor the other day said. He said, Brad, you need to make sure that you are abiding. Just take the time and you're abiding.
Yeah.
And if there's
and
a
when
time
you're a doer and all of a sudden someone's saying just sit, you're like, ask me anything else.
Can I sit more actively than I'm sitting right now? Is that okay?
What plan B do we have?
Yeah. So that's my story, and I look forward to where God is going to take us, and and if He decides this is not it, then I'll find what's next. But right now, I feel like I finally have a future that's worthy of the struggle. There's joy in the suffering, and I know that my suffering is nothing like what you've faced and what your husband has faced and what so many other J6ers have been through. And my heart goes out to those that are still sitting in jail for pretrial, those that are in prison, those that have just because of who they associate with, they've been unjustly accused and convicted. And it's a travesty on this country. It's a travesty on our government. And and I certainly hope that God has a plan to rectify some of this while we're still here, so that the world can see what's happened. And that's out of our hands. There's things we can do, obviously through activism. Right now, I've been focusing on what my wife and I refer to as Rukstales, protecting the home front. Our country is our 1 acre plot of land.
That's right. That's right.
I feel like I've given what I can personally, and that God's calling me to go the direction I'm going. So I'm not one that's going to be terribly involved in politics. I've always been a private person, and I feel like that's where I'm best serving. But that doesn't mean I don't have my point of view and share it to those close to me. And
ironically, everything involves politics.
It does now.
But even your privacy, like everything about it now, you view through that filter. Because I wasn't political before this, but you can sure bet I'm keeping my thumb to the pulse now. There won't be no lulling back to sleep.
No. Once you are awake to the reality of what's going on in this country, you don't have a choice to go back. There's no choice to, you can't undream that dream.
That's right. You see the danger. If you're a family man, now you realize these political, leaders, tyrants, whatever you want to call them, they're going to affect your children. So you have to stay in the game, whether you want to or not, no other reason but to watch them and be awake.
That's right.
Oh, I'm going to tell you, Brad, this has been one of my favorite interviews. I did not realize what the Lord had been doing in your life. I think it's probably been a year and a half since I talked to you last, and had no idea. I think it is just one of the most gorgeous pictures I've seen. There is nothing more attractive than somebody submitting their life to the Lord. Lord, do what you want. And here you had wealth, you had fame, you had everything going in your direction, and you were even glorifying the Lord with it.
That's right.
And he still tore it down and said, I have a new direction. I've called you a new thing. And that's where the people need to understand when you relinquish your life to Jesus Christ, your life is no longer your own. It really belongs to the Lord and whatever he wants to do with it. And who are we to tell the potter how he can make the clay? If he wants you to go through brokenness, you're going to go through brokenness. And I guarantee you're going to be more beautiful for it. You know, I don't know if you've paid attention to broken glass, but it really shines a lot of beautiful light and color. So
I'll definitely take a look at that. But yeah, and there's a peace that surpasses all human understanding when you know that God is putting you where he wants you. Of course, there's pain. Of course, there's tears. Of course, there's anxiety. And that's being human, you know, and we're all human and we all sin and we all have human emotions and we're supposed to have human emotions. But working through that and knowing that, okay, God's in control, you know, and it's up to me. He doesn't hand us a spotlight. He gives us a lantern. He says, okay, go look for it. Go look for it. It's out there. Go look for it. And that made me earn it, because I wasn't going to stop. I wasn't going to despair and say, okay, I'm done, and hide into a cocoon. So to God be the glory, and you know, may he bless all of the J6ers who are messed up in all of this, and may we find redemption through him, and may he share that with the world.
Amen, brother. That couldn't end on a more better note. So obviously, y'all are going to be in the healing process for a long time, like me and Mark. I've told people we'll never be the same again. We're not looking to be the same again. That's the beauty of it, is this cleans up a lot of problems that you had in your life that you couldn't get around, that you didn't even know. Like, I was fear-based. I didn't know I was a fearful person. I was afraid of everything. I didn't even see it. And now that's gone. It's, you know, my only fear now is, Lord, am I pleasing you? You know, I don't want to let him down. I don't want to fail him. And I want to be obedient to the call.
Yeah. Amen. Yeah. Amen.
Would you mind closing us out in prayer?
I would love to. I would love to.
Awesome. Let's do that.
Dear God, thank you for this opportunity to witness on your behalf and to witness your goodness and your faithfulness. May that flow through to all those who are being persecuted in this country, the good people who have made their voices heard and are being unjustly persecuted by a government and by a system that does not have your will at heart and has their own will, which is not that of peace and prosperity for us citizens. Please fill our hearts with your will. Please fill our lives with blessings and joy. And may we continue to dedicate our hearts, our souls, our minds, and our lives to your will for us. Since we ask in your precious name, amen.
Amen. That is so wonderful, Brad. I thank you for coming on the show. It is hard to be vulnerable, and those are always my favorites. Because it's not easy to do in front of people. It's not easy to do to say, you know what, I'm just laying my life out there because I love my brother enough. I love my sister enough to see them not fall in the same traps, and for them to be wise and awake, and for them to feel the safety to be themselves, to take off that mask, to be broken, and to lay those pieces out and say, Daddy, I need put back together. And that's what just allowed people to do on here today.
Amen. And be told you're okay. You're okay.
Yes, you're going to be okay. It feels like you're going to die when going through it, but I promise you're not going to be. You're going to be more beautiful than you were before. So, Brad, thank you for coming on the show. I wish you the best. We're going to have to stay in touch more because I feel so edified through this.
That sounds great, Jalise. Yep. And all the best to you and Mark, too, with all you're going through.
Thank you so much. God bless you. Okay. Y'all have a blessed day.
Oh, you too, Jalise. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.